My people, yeah. This is a segment where I'm going to share some of the meta and thoughts behind the episode. Meta such as why certain things unfolded the way they did, why these characters ended up with those characters, and how I mold the story around the submissions. So this could provide some insight into how it all morphed into that final result. This is going to be a recurring segment that I'm going to do for every episode as a sincere token of my gratitude for those who support Peoplz and Dragons outside and beyond the scope of viewing and subscribing, which is what really matters, but any little bit helps. With the pledge to our MetaPass patron tier, you will get access to these meta behind the scene looks at the episodes that will shortly follow the past episode. This isn't everybody's thing, but I know some people like that kind of stuff. So it's nothing too extravagant or grand. I didn't want to do something that would cut into production time, but it's something very chill, informative, and it puts some perspective on the episodes. All right. So thank you all for participating, liking, subscribing, and joining us for the ride. Let's continue. So the first part is looking at our 3 arcs, right? Electronic Panic, Nebuhaven Colonies, and Gray Areas. And these were built around the 3 plot devices that we chose from our Flames of Creation videos that were all upvoted by the community. So once I had these 3 plot devices, I wanted to build a individual story around each of these. Think of them like comic books. These story arcs are like comic books, and a line of comic books, because the goal is for characters to jump into these comics, into these story arcs, these short little stints, to be on the grand stage and to do things that are memorable as your character and make history. So at the end of each season, we would have 3 separate stories, and each of them will have their own group of characters that were involved. And as we continue on season by season, it's going to be fun to see these people cross paths again, have new characters come into their stories, reunited. It's kind of like, who's going to be the first X-Men in P&D? Who's going to be the first Fantastic Four? Who's going to be the first solo character that's always just a lone wolf? And then as we progress in the seasons, whenever there's a crossover or a cameo appearance or some kind of mix up, it's going to be exciting, because you'll be able to remember and refer to seasons that these characters are from, these story arcs. So the whole point of having these story arcs is to give a stage for characters to get on and do things, and the plot devices are simply just the topic. We want the characters to be able to live their life, but somehow tie themselves to one thing so that we can get everybody involved in some various form, shape, or capacity. An example that I like to use is, let's say your character is a painter, okay? And the plot device are teleslabs, these giant runes. Well, you can focus on your character, but still make yourself relevant to the teleslabs. So imagine if you're a painter and you find this really nice place to paint. Because the teleslab is really large and it's off in the distance, it's in your view. That might be negative. Maybe you're like, man, this teleslab is really ruining this shot I have at drawing this waterfall or this sunrise. Or maybe it really looks great, and ever since then you found a way to incorporate this teleslab in your painting and it got real trendy and famous. You know, it's still, the story is about you, and you're a painter, and you're still trying to improve your painting and gain renown. But now it involves one of the plot devices. That is the farthest distance. You can probably even come up with a better example that's even further away from the plot device, but still manages to tie you to the relevancy of the plot device. But that's just an example that I like to use, because depending on what type of shit that you're into, the plot device can be relevant in so many different ways. in so many different ways. And I want to push the story in a direction of characters that have really interesting tie-ins. Can come in different shapes and forms. Depends on the timing. It depends on what other characters are doing. If all the characters are doing one thing and there's one character doing a different thing, that might make it could swing both ways. Maybe that's why their submission is going to be more interesting, because in contrast to everything else that's happening, it's different, and it's good to kind of mix it up. So when you had the Teleslabs arc, everything going on with the Teleslabs, the stuff with the EMP towers is very relevant to the Teleslabs, but it's also very different, and that's why it stood out more, or that's why it could stand alone. There's going to be story arcs that will have no action, no fighting, no destruction, no war. There might be a romantic story arc or a comedic story arc. It's really going to be what the majority of the characters in each story arc are doing, and how they're shifting and changing the narrative of the story that's happening in that arc. And that's what's going to be fun. So for me, as a director and writing all this, I'm really looking forward to seeing what characters are going to fall into which story arcs, because I kind of get an idea of what kind of show this is going to end up being. Electronic Panic was introducing the plot device for Electronic Panic was communication, and we knew we were going to be introducing some form of communication, which ended up being these teleslabs, these giant rooms that are used for it's magitech. It's a mix of magic and technology. It's used for communication. People will communicate telepathically through these magic rooms. These teleslabs have become the best means of communication, and the freedom from telecommunications has been liberating. But this new uncharted combination of magic and telepathy is but another medium and opportunity for the unexpected. So that was to kind of show that there's something can happen with these teleslabs, and it could be a good or a bad thing. So these teleslabs and or the dependency on them is incredibly relevant to X and Y characters, and all the characters who felt that these teleslabs would be relevant to, because they are concerned about the dependency on them, or just their existence to begin with. They are the ones that came to this episode. So we have a lot of very intelligent people who are into the arcane attending this episode. Then we have the Nebuhaven colonies. The mayor's carefully planned approach to getting acquainted with the inhabitants of the tank was not well received by all Anvil migrants. Some felt it was suicide and preferred a more stealthy approach. The night before the Anvil landing, a unit of migrants took the initiative and departed stealthily. They flew their ships into the dense mutated jungle regions of Nibu, finding a home in the abandoned Nebuhaven colonies engulfed in overgrowth. At least they could land alive and worry about surviving afterwards. Meanwhile, the Nebuhaven colony is an incredibly dangerous location to colonize, but it is filled with opportunity and a hotbed for potential. The Nebuhaven colonies somehow are incredibly relevant to your character. So this is pretty much an invite to anyone who wants to start fresh on this fresh new continent called New Nibu. Well, it's not a new continent, but it's just been renovated. So anything can happen. Anything can happen in this arc, because we don't know who's coming, or we didn't know until now. Gray areas. The new Minister of Resources and Finance has become a very powerful figurehead in Haven. This person brought drastic and abrupt change to how the city's dwindling resources are being distributed. The minister is opposed to letting the strangers from beyond seek refuge in the city, and is fighting to have them removed. The minister's involvement in the city's livelihood and divisive handling of Anvil migrants negatively or positively affects your character quite significantly, and is somehow incredibly relevant to your character. So, a lot of focus on this one. This is probably one of the most important arcs to the structure and well-being of Haven City. And as you can see, the people that attended this particular arc are really prominent characters in the series who have always put the city of Haven on the top of their list of priorities. In addition to the 3 arcs, we had an extended intro scene that was pretty much table setting and putting everything else into perspective before we jumped into it. Because season 3 is different because we have migrants, and migrants are these individuals who are from a place called Anvil Station. And Anvil Station is a place that's out in the galaxy. It's kind of like a checkpoint, a place, a civilization, a settlement in space where people come to and fro between their travels, a rest stop, if you will. And so there are people from all walks of life, all galaxies, that come to this station. You got to remember that Gamma Haven is a setting inside of an isolated tank in a much larger universe, galaxies, star systems. And we don't even know everything about the tank itself because it's all just being created as we go. So eventually, that's the main reason why I added punk types, because I want each character to build on the aspect of the world that they're really responsible for as a priority. And sure, they can submit lore for everything else, but try to build on lore that is in your field, your punk type field. So if you are a scientist, or if you are a discoverer or an explorer, you can take the lead on what is this and what is that. For example, I think it was Squid Baron who submitted the whole thing with the planet theory, which was a whole alternate way of how people got gamma mutations or retrieved them as opposed to gamma radiation. There was actually a dimension that could be tapped into that would get you your gamma mutations. So just stuff like that. And that's just one aspect of the science. So there could be any character who could come. Anarchy was close to that. He was the one that actually discovered outer space, that even existed. But as far as everything else goes, if a character submits something on it, or if they're trying to build that out in their individual submissions throughout the story, they are likely going to be able to have a bigger impact on the game in regards to, the lore. So Anvil Station is a place where everybody from all walks of life can come to. Their fate brings them here. But what had happened was, after a while, this time distortion, this black hole appeared and made it so that nobody can travel to Anvil Station. Resources couldn't arrive to Anvil Station. No one could come to Anvil Station without being pulled into this black hole that was nearby. And because of that, Anvil Station started to become a bad place to be, because they had no food, no resources. Meanwhile, more and more people were being spit out of that black hole, and they would drift and land in Anvil Station. And that's because Anvil Station is really a symbol of Anvil.com, World Forge. What is the website called? I call it Anvil. The World Forge. Let me see. Shit. World Anvil website. It's a great website. What Dimitri and Janet are doing with that website is colossal, and it's a luxury to be using it, especially with what we're doing with Peoplz and Dragons. It is a boon. And Anvil Station symbolizes worldanvil.com and what it brings. And Anvil.com already is for storytellers and people who are running campaigns. So it's filled with characters from all over the world. And that's why Anvil Station is a place where these migrants, these people who have no memories, it's because I envisioned that one day, as this gets bigger, P&D gets bigger and bigger, people will start coming from all over the world, including people who are involved with World Anvil already. So this was a way to make it so that people could bring in characters from their own campaigns, from outside of any medium, any creative medium that they already use. I know I have characters from D&D games from a long time ago. I haven't played them in a while, but I would love to be able to put them somewhere. Hell, This is based off, this game is based off of a campaign that I ran called Gamma Universe. And some of those characters have been in here. But even video game characters and characters that you used to draw when you were in 3rd grade on your paper, on your homework, bring them here. I want characters from everywhere in here. I'm excited because we finally got a character that's a bird person. Like, I love stuff like that. When I saw Kuth, he's your traditional fantasy character. He's from a fantasy world. Awesome. So Anvil Station makes it so that we can open it up to more things, and they would just be considered migrants, because any character that is not of the races in the tank, we're going to say that they had landed when Anvil Station came, when Anvil Station arrived, when we started using Anvil.com. And there needed to be somebody in charge or a figurehead for these folks. So I came up with the idea of a mayor, just a vague term that we traditionally use for things that haven't been fleshed out, like the governor, the mayor, the elite, the leader, RPG terms. Carrick from ACG Gaming is a YouTuber that I've followed for a long time, long time. And I've joined him on some podcasts that he has done in the past, and we've pretty much stayed in contact, and he's always been a supporter of my YouTube endeavors. Carrick makes the best damn game review videos that you'll ever see. And it's just his style. And his rating system is unique and very efficient. And I always liked the way he would review games. He saves people a lot of money because, these days people just buy games because they're being fooled by the marketing or the hype. And, before things really got out of hand, like the way the gaming industry is now, this is, when I discovered Carrick, he was saving me money because he was, shining light on games that I was going to buy without a hitch, without even thinking about it. And he would review them, and I would maybe I'm not going to get that. The long story less long, I would recommend his game review channel to anyone, ACG. His link to his channel is in the description box below. And we were talking about collaborating on a video, and then the idea came up of voice acting. Let's just do some voice acting. And he and 2 others were interested. So I was like, hey, there is a role that we can have some voice acting for. I was more so trying to think of an important role that could potentially be a recurring role. And so that was the mayor. I knew I wanted the mayor to be important, and I didn't want to give that title or that responsibility to any player character at the moment. So it would be perfect for voice acting. So the mayor became Carrick's character, and the 2 others, Citizen Sleeve and Silver, became Remus and Delmont. And I pretty much told them what would be happening in the scene, because I knew that the migrants were going to be landing and they were going to get apprehended and taken away for negotiations. So that whole intro part, when the migrants are landing, I told them that you're going to be landing. It's going to look like this. You're going to open it up. You're going to be met at gunpoint. There's going to be a portion where you're walking from your ship to them. There's going to be a portion where they have your guns pointed at you and they're going to be taking you in. And I was just telling them that and asking them to make up any dialogue they wanted, and I was going to find a way to write it, to implement it. So they had the freedom to write whatever they wanted to, and I would just go ahead and write the story around whatever they come up with, similar to what I do with everyone else in their actions.
The inhabitants of Haven are different. They're misshapen, mutated, extra eyes and arms, and different ways of seeing and doing things, and I don't think I trust them all that much. But then, do I trust Mayor Valor more? No, I do not.
They really had a fun time. I thought it was great. I loved it when they submitted it in. I was telling them how I was walking around just saying the lines over and over again. The inhabitants of Haven is like a menagerie. just can't. I can't help. It just sticks. The inhabitants of Haven are like a menagerie of. So yeah, we started off with a little flashback of when the migrants landed, which wasn't too far away from where we are now. And the mayor is taken away, and they are each separated, Belmont and Remus. So these three individuals are representing those from Anvil Station. There's a scene where Mayor Goth is looking out of the window as they're approaching the planet, and he sees this giant city, and it takes up an entire continent. And what I pictured on that particular part was one of my favorite games growing up was Final Fantasy VIII, and there was a part on the continent, or in the game on its own continent, called Esther City, and the entire continent was a giant futuristic city. And I remember when I first saw that, growing up playing RPGs, the towns were always just little places on the map. Your character was always bigger than the town on the world map. Man, I don't know if y'all have ever played Final Fantasy VIII, but that city was humongous. Google it when you get a chance. When you get a chance, Google it right now. Actually, Google Final Fantasy VIII Esther City world map, and just look at what that thing looks like. And when it's your first time seeing something like that, it kind of sticks with you. So that's why I always envision Haven City as this massive continent-sized city. But anyway, Goth, he's remembering what Scorn told him, and Scorn told him that there are some people on the planet that have some significant control and that can be diplomatic as well. And she knows them as Haven Guard and Gate and so on and so forth, because she's been involved down there. But now she's doing other things. Mind you, Mr. Scorn is an actual player character, and though she didn't submit anything in Act 1, I'm still going off of her last submission because I kind of made it a major part of the story, which is her being the one that is moving the tank away from the Necrofiend star system, which is a bad place. And she's the reason that we were saved. The planet was saved from the that colonizer group, the intergalactic, I forget what they're called. It was something, the Virgin Tears, which was created by her. They were colonizers of space, and they couldn't control what was in the tank, so they wanted to destroy it. So that's why the tank was being moved out of the way. But now she's running around the city with this thing, looking for a place for it. So I have her on autopilot, and to kind of shift it away from her, so I don't have to act on her behalf. We're just going to say, and it's still along the lines of what she last submitted about benefiting off of these opportunities to tank. And she's an information dealer in the universe as well. We're making it so that she struck a deal with Anvil and said, hey, you can live in this place, and if you can trade me the entire station, this desolate station, and then we'll leave her to her devices, and we can kind of get back into the tank with Mayor Goth Valuer. So Mayor Goth Valuer is thinking, okay, I'm going to go to this planet. I got to meet the right people, and things can get really crazy. And everybody else is like, you're tripping. Like, it's not a good idea to just land in the city. And that's why some people got off early. So in the prompt, in the intro to the season 3, I stated that there was a group of migrants that jumped off and landed in the jungle. I wanted there to be a portion of the new players to go into Nibu, and I wanted another portion to go into the city, because the intention was for everybody to start off landing with Mayor Goth Valuer, because y'all are all just hitting the planet. But because of the whole role punk thing that we have in the Discord and how established you all have gotten with joining factions, when the submissions came out, everybody was already having plans with, I'm going to be involved in this, I'm going to be in the city doing that. So that's when I had to implement a little time skip and say that it was months have passed, since the landing, because that would make sense. That would make better sense for people such as Mal Ross and the Solarium, who are already established. They're not even in Camp Rust. You know what I mean? Initially, I wanted everybody to either be in Camp Rust, or be in Nebu. But I kind of scrapped that idea and just went with the 2-month time skip just to make it easier. Otherwise, I would have to kind of create an origin, a prologue for each of you on how you got out of Camp Rust if you didn't go to Nebu, how you got out of Camp Rust to even be doing what you're doing in the submission. Starting off the episode, we started with a glimpse into the Survey Day. We see them feeding on the clean souls of migrants, which in turn made them stronger. And it was stated that the younger they were, the more powerful it would make them. And the reason for that is just to show that, hey, the Survey Day are still here. And there's this character called Oblivion. And once this player came into the game and submitted this character called Oblivion, he didn't necessarily know that there was already a cult inside of the game, because he said he wanted to do something that dealt with cults. And I was like, that's perfect, because we have this cult called the Survey Day. So I wasn't even going to bring them back until Oblivion. I mean, I'm surely they would have came back, but not like this. So I wanted to bring them back because we needed a cult that Oblivion could escape from, because that was going to be how he would be introduced into the world, because he would have to get away from. And from what I know of his character, there is a device, there is a mechanism inside of the Oblivion that was planted by them, and it would seem that the Oblivion is some sort of weapon, this harbinger that they have been alluding to, probably. No spoilers. So we knew that when we would introduce the Oblivion, we wanted to put in context that he would need to, or she, I'm sorry, would need to escape. And I thought it would be cool to start the episode off with this, because I kind of wanted to, I want to do something important with Oblivion. We probably, the Survey Day cult is a problem, and I feel like there needs to be some resolution to this problem. So if we're going to bring the Survey Day back, this should probably be the last time. So I think by having this Oblivion character, that will allow us, and this is just how I'm thinking, that will allow me to bring them back so that somebody can do something about them once and for all. So I figured, hey, I was actually thinking of calling this entire saga, this entire trio of arcs, the Oblivion saga, because I want to do something with Oblivion. I'm not sure yet. But for now, Oblivion is escaping, and I thought that would be a good intro piece. The player character's entire submission was pretty much stating that they wanted to get to Gate and utilize Gate, because Gate can help them. Gate can help them become normal and normalized, break their anthrophobia is what they stated, and fight back for freedom. You know, this is a character that has been trapped and not only wants to kind of be rehabilitated, but be within the care of people that actually care. And then that's how I was interpreting it. They said, when I asked them what actions will your character attempt to achieve their goal, they said that they would try to get help from doctors and therapists to not be afraid of people. So this player was saying that because their goal was to already be within the confines of Gate and using Gate's resources to help rehabilitate them. But remember, this is episode 1, and we're picking up where we had left off. So instead of just starting with Gate already in the Gate Center, I thought it would be better to have to bring some context to this person, since they're going to be very important, to show where they came from. And that's why the beginning of the episode starts with her escaping, and the end of the episode ends with her getting to the Gate Center, or I'm sorry, to Tempest. The part where Oblivion is running and she falls on the stalagmite, I wanted to show that this girl is not normal. Like, she is a walking abomination pretty much, because her mutation is that she mutates. You know, she is a giant fleshy mass of this character, the player, brought back pretty much abominations, you know, and it's terrifying if you think about the kind of destruction that we've seen from abominations in the past. So the part when she falls into in the caverns and while she's escaping was to show that she cannot be hurt by normal means. Wanted to display one of the abilities that this character has, which is pain resistance. And what better way to show that than to fall on a spike and then not be there when people come to investigate. But yeah, I wanted to start it off by showing one of the biggest problems, which was this whole survey day return. A problem that maybe not everyone was expecting, because none of the 3 plot devices had anything to do with the survey day. And that's just to show that problems will not always be what they seem, and I want players to react to these things the way their character would, and what is right and wrong won't always be easy to distinguish. So where you think the main problem is this minister, you know, shoving all these migrants into Camp Rust, to then find out that there's a bigger problem, and we learn that why the minister is trying to keep all these migrants in one place because of what the cultists are doing. I was hoping that it would kind of change the perspective a bit, that it was a bit more complex than just this bad minister guy doing these things that no one likes, and that there's sometimes reasons behind these things. And whether it justifies it or not, it's not just going to be black or white, which is why one of the story arcs was called Gray Areas, because it's just dealing with some things that can have people on both sides. So when I saw Octavian Roth and Rockham's submission and how they were saying, well, you know, I feel like there's more to this and I'm not sure where I stand on the matter, I think they were getting it. I think they were seeing what I was going for. Because there are risks in having these alien intruders, just especially everything that Haven City has gone through with the Night Skin Advocate, already the Survey Day cultists. You would want to have some sort of control over who's just walking around. And it was so sudden. And this was right off the cusp of refugees coming from the Iron Republic. So I think they were looking at it from a holistic standpoint from both sides for the sake of the city as well, but just not to the extent where we're just letting people, you know, walk around that are new to the planet. And I thought that was cool when I saw their submission, so that's why they ended up being that voice of reason. But more on that later. Soon after, I then went to a scene with the ministers, you know, in his pretty much his war room with his advisors. And I wanted to have a scene that would immediately, from the jump, from the beginning, because, all right, the gray areas scenario was that there is this Minister of Resources and Finances that is shaking things up, and the effects of how this person is distributing resources is having a positive or negative effect on your character. And a lot of people chose that what they're doing is having a negative effect on not only their character but the people, because the minister was putting everybody in Camp Rust, and everybody felt a lot of people felt that was wrong, putting not only having people already in Camp Rust, but also taking these people from another planet or visiting from outside of the planet, putting them in Camp Rust. And when I saw that, it was kind of expected, because at the end of the day, it is how you go about things that can really paint a picture of your character. And I had a feeling that most people would probably want to rebel against the minister, because it just seemed evil. This one person doing this to so many people, no matter how justified their actions are, it was wrong because it was affecting a lot of people. whether those people were not from here or not. But anyway, we immediately see the minister's true feelings about the whole situation and why things are being distributed the way they are because of there's multiple underlying problems that the public doesn't know about. One is the entire planet is about to not have an ozone layer or some kind of protective shield that the tank provided, shielding it from space. And then also the tank is dying because of the tank is dying. The planet's dying because the tank is no longer producing the energy that it had to sustain this technology level. And then also you have migrants that are being taken by the cultists because their soul energy is powerful, is giving them power. But none of these things are being told to the public. It's quite a lot. It could be problematic if everybody knew these things. So the minister is doing things that makes it look like it's personal, and people are not really they're not buying it. They're not really liking how this person's handling these things. So I wanted to show that from the jump to kind of put things in perspective and see the misunderstanding and see the backlash fueled by a lot of this Survey Day propaganda, because we could assume that a lot of this backlash is being created by not only the people but the Survey Day, because the Survey Day they're in the community, they're in all walks of life. You know, the Survey Day, remember, had a restaurant, and under the restaurant were people that they were eating. The Survey Day had politicians. The Survey Day, they held that tournament that R-Type X won. So they are in all walks of life, and there's a lot of agents out there, typically sporting green. And that's why the minister was saying that this information doesn't get shared, because apparently there are some trust issues and can't trust everybody. So we hear about the missing persons case and how dead guards that are being killed is justifying the distribution of resources going to the armed forces in the streets. And this is mistaken as the minister is just giving power to armed forces to deal with the people. So it's a lot of confusion, a lot of misunderstandings because of the lack of communication about sensitive topics. And then we have a character named Syrian. We learn that Syrian is the close advisor to the minister, and that is pretty much because of what the player submitted. Syrian is a cyber engineer with computer science skills. Chrysostomics is their mutation, which is pretty much the ability to influence people around him if he puts a sufficient amount of effort into it. And he has a unique style of martial arts. But in his submission, when asked why this story or this plot was relevant to his character, he stated that the minister hurts the migrants and limits resources. If Syrian is associated with the position, he could gain trust with the people and publish more science. What is your character's end goal? To research and find secrets, dirt, and plans the minister has, and become a trusted right hand to influence him to get the Haven Guard in. What actions will your character attempt to achieve their goal? Secretly hack his computer and sneak around his office or house. Use knowledge and his mutation to convince him that I am a good advisor and open the gates for the guard. Okay, so that's why Syrian is in the position that he was in from the start of the episode, because I thought it would be better to just assume that he already put in all the work to get to where he was. And he is acting as the advisor, some sort of gate center or Haven Guard spy, pretty much. And that's why we start off with the minister sharing all of this information with Syrian, because he is his most trusted and reliable advisor, So Syrian is immediately getting what he is here for, and that's information. And that's when he learns about the minister's true intentions and why Syrian gets becomes a little conflicted, because he sees that the minister thinks that he's just in his actions. But even Syrian is like, the way you're going about it is wrong. The only reason Syrian didn't actually ever hack anything is because Leaf was already doing that, and we'll get into that later. But I was still able to portray Syrian's computer skills, because I also wanted to use this intro scene to show that there is a bigger problem. I always love it when there's a bigger problem that can affect everybody while they're fighting each other. And the bigger problem that is being foreshadowed is that the tank's protective layer is disappearing, as well as all the resources are leaving. So because the tank is essentially a computer, it would be, I feel like it was perfect to have Syrian playing this role. And that's why we have the scene where he is the one that's explaining to everybody what's actually happening, and nobody's believing him, because that only applies to computers, because not everybody knows that the tank is a computer. Not everybody, 99% of the people are not aware of their actual existence. And at the time this information is being explained, Syrian doesn't even know that they are in a computer. So it doesn't make sense to him, but he sees it so clearly, but he just can't explain it. And that's why he was kind of a little off balance there in that intro scene. But ultimately, Syrian is he chooses to follow orders, as opposed to caving in now that he sees the minister's side. He's following Gates' orders, which is why we see him say, hey, you got to stop doing this. And he leaves some words with the minister to affect the minister and influence him. And that's why we see the minister standing there after Syrian leaves the room. After he leaves the room, because we wanted to show that Syrian's influence ability is working. Also, we get a little glimpse of a character named Sasha Petrov. And Sasha Petrov is an elite bodyguard. And the reason that I put Sasha in this scene is because this is what they put. So why is a story arc or plot relevant to your character? And Sasha says, Sasha is the head of security for Gate and needs to protect the key members from rioters, hitmen, and the like. So it would make sense that since Syrian is pretty much on this spy mission, that he would have a bodyguard to protect him. And since Sasha is a Gate bodyguard, we can assume that they are both pretty much undercover. And, obviously they don't know that they're tied to the Gate Center. But even if they are tied to the Gate Center, it's not like the minister is enemies with the Gate Center. You know what I mean? So that's why we had Sasha joining Syrian. It just seemed appropriate. What is your character's end goal? To survive, get enough money to leave this godforsaken planet, and maybe meet beautiful women somewhere and settle down. That's what Sasha put. And that reminds me, and I'm going to clean that question up in the next act. When I say end goal, I did mean like your end goal for this particular episode, this act. And some people interpret it as like the grand scheme. But I that's my fault. So Sasha pretty much tells us that his grand scheme is to just get money and leave this damn planet. What actions will your character attempt to achieve their goal? Will provide protection and backup for Syrian and others as they do their work so he can get paid. Okay, so he said he would provide protection and backup for Syrian. And I don't know if Sasha knew that Syrian was going to be as deep in all this as he ended up being. But it was perfect, and that's good synergy right there. That's why punk types is really important, because you have mercenaries, and mercenaries are going to protect the people that don't have abilities, a lot of abilities to protect themselves. One of the dialogue pieces that Sasha wanted to say in the episode was the part when he said, shit hits the fan. I'm pulling you out, no questions asked. I'll let you do your job. You let me do mine. So obviously that means there would need to be a scene where somebody has an issue or a gripe with how great of a security guard Sasha is being. So the part when the minister asks everyone to leave the room except Syrian, I thought that was a perfect place to put that there. Also, we wanted to introduce Sasha's androidimal, big ass black android panther. So not only is he a staunch protector, he has the keyword relation. Okay. And in Sasha's submission, they put, when I asked if there was anything I should be aware of, they said, yeah, my keyword, relational. Sasha is good at talking other people down from bad decisions. So the part when Syrian is asking Sasha to leave the room, like the minister wanted, Sasha was able to, they were able to reach a compromise. Because you got to remember, Syrian also has an ability to influence people into doing what he says. So they are allies. So I didn't think Syrian would think it was that serious to the point where he would need to go balls out and talking Sasha out of, into leaving the room. So that's why there was sort of a compromise there. Syrian asks Sasha to leave. Sasha explains why. That's not a good idea. I'm your bodyguard. And Syrian's minister is like, come on, when somebody got to leave. And Syrian's like, okay, all right, how about the Panther? And Sasha's like, no. But then Syrian he pushes a little harder and Sasha's like, okay. But as opposed to Syrian just talking them out of both leaving the room, that was a little bit because of the keyword relational that Sasha has. And Sasha, the player of Sasha, was able to kind of provide some context as to why relational would be important right now and how that would come into play. So he pretty much talked Syrian out of talking him into leaving. So I'm going to talk about each story arc separate from one another, as opposed to how I went back and forth in the episode. And I'm going to start off with Electronic Panic. If you're not interested in the behind the scenes behind Electronic Panic, feel free to jump to the part that your character was actually in, or parts that you care about. The timestamps will be in the description or in the comments. So let's start with Electronic Panic. So the way it started off was we kind of got a montage of people embracing these teleslabs. I wanted to kind of set the stage to show that these teleslabs are using these things because it is an alternative to electronic communications. So we see celebrities using them. Everybody's using them. And then we have this one character named Vernelli Connell who is speaking out about the dangers of these teleslabs because they can attract abyssal entities or even worse. So he kind of goes into, when you're mixing magic and the brain, the mind, that is leaving people susceptible. That's why I'm really glad that this character came to this event. It was almost perfect for Vernelli Connell. He is like he kind of reminds me of a John Constantine. He knows a lot about the occult, magic, and he's a hard grit detective. So when asked how do the teleslabs, how are they relevant to him, he says that he wants to protect people from magical / abyssal entities. So this is right up his alley, and I couldn't agree more. Plus, he doesn't like the mixing of magic and tech. So that's why we have him in the scene talking about and trying to bring awareness to how magic and technology together can be problematic, and people aren't really thinking about the repercussions because of their ignorance of the magic and the risks. What is your character's end goal is what was asked, and he said to make sure people can safely use the new technology without getting hijacked by a demon or some other entity. And that kind of tied into why he is here at this excavation site with the teleslabs later on in the scenes. But for now, we see him on television, kind of foreshadowing his work that we're going to see later with the Solarium. And because we were on the television, I used that as a segue to cut into a scene of showing a bunch of negative news about that's covering all the rebellion going on with the androids, the android rebellion. And I specifically stated that on this news cut, we would see a bunch of faces of multiple suspects. And I was kind of was foreshadowing Mirror 3, because Mirror 3 is an actor. One of their abilities is to act and take on just disguises. So the part when I say, we see a screen of multiple suspects, it's all Mirror 3 just playing its part in all of this rebellion and this chaos on the EMP towers. And then after we get this scene of just watching all this news, from Vernelli talking to the Android rebellions, we segue to R-Type X watching all of this news, looking at his sword glowing. And this is just showing you that there's still something going on. At the end of season 2, when the Uncryptids first step into the normal plane, R-Type X sword starts glowing, and that's how the season ended. So by showing R-Type again, it's just to remind you that the Uncryptids are still around, and they're still a problem. And he doesn't know about the Uncryptids, or that it's truly the Uncryptids. And I think that's because it's like, they're like a myth. You know what I mean? Maybe he thought they were gone or never really existed. We don't know if R-Type X ever really actually dealt with one. I like this dichotomy between Raylagarians and the Uncryptids that we're going to make here. This ancient enemy, or an ancient old enemy. I'm sure Raylagarians have a lot of enemies, and that's something we want to explore in the future. Because the Raylagarians' enemy is likely everybody's enemy. But the Uncryptids is the first step into that Raylagarian history. This scene when with R-Type and the homeless person, the reason even R-Type was in a homeless shelter was just to show that R-Type is a drifter and he can find comfort anywhere. But also wanted to address the thing with his shoes. It was really just a callback to an earlier season. I don't remember which season it was, when Ali was making fun of R-Type X's shoes. So I'm like, let's make it. I want to show that R-Type is a very neutral person. Despite what anyone may think, R-Type X is actually a nice person. So when he gave the homeless person all of the money, to make it so that the homeless person would even think he would have money, I thought it would be cool if it was because of his footwear. Yeah. So R-Type X is a drifter, and it was only right to kind of show what's going on in the world, to see it from the perspective of R-Type X. So we have R-Type X drifting through the city alone. And I wanted to kind of show a really depressing montage or paint a picture of sad scenes displaying Android caution zones to show how these EMP towers are affecting androids. But I also wanted to show that it's not as bad as people think. There's levels to how the EMP fields are set. And there are many androids that are affected on different levels, but not to the extent of the anti-EMP tower propaganda. There's a lot of misunderstandings. And again, the point here is to show that the media is taking this and kind of running with it and taking it to the next level. And we see a rebellion of androids throwing debris at these EMP towers. And that is just to show the environment. Haven City, there's always something going on in the environment. And in this case, it is the turmoil in the community, particularly toward androids. Because it's a safety mechanism to have these EMP towers due to some androids being possessed by abyssal entities. We should all assume that more people have been saved by these EMP towers than hurt. In fact, probably not a lot of people have been hurt by the EMP towers, or at least just them alone. So, what I was trying to sell here is that there is a good reason for these EMP towers. It was a countermeasure that needed to be created quickly because the Ikermancer thing just started happening toward the latter half of last season, and it started to get a little out of hand. People were getting hurt, and so the best way to shut down this phenomena of inanimate objects being possessed was to build something that could stop them in these mechanical vessels, for now at least. And then I thought that was a good moment to segue into introducing Mirror and Mirror's role in all of this. After the little bit of foreshadowing we did with the faces, we see Mirror turn around, revealing that he is a leader of this anarchy, this rebellion against these EMP towers, and he's getting ready to lead an assault. In Mirror's submission, he stated, those EMP towers are oppressing my people, but the Teleslabs might present an opportunity. And that's why in the story I had alluded to the fact that they're using the Teleslabs to plan these attacks on the EMP towers, just to show that he's getting use out of these Teleslabs, opening up some opportunities to fulfill and achieve his goals. Then when I asked, what is your character's end goal? His end goal was to rebuild Anarchy's kingdom. Now, I'm sure he wasn't going to do that all in one episode, but that's back to what I was saying, how some people interpreted that question as the ultimate end goal, and I can understand that. I'll just need to specify what I meant, which is, what is your end goal for your actions in this episode? But I really like how, because the character of Anarchy, the player of Anarchy is putting Anarchy on the shelf and using a different character. So I thought it was cool that we have this apprentice, but more like it kind of reminds me of Batman and the Red Hood. The Red Hood is doing what Batman didn't or wouldn't do, and he has his own goals and his methods of achieving those goals. And Mirror is very different from Anarchy, very different in a lot of ways. I just get this Sephiroth Kadaj vibe, and I think it's going to be really interesting. That's the kind of shit that gets you in every episode. Then Mirror states that his actions are going to be to locate and recruit sleepers and volunteers. So that's why in the scene you see that there was a point where there were multiple androids lined up ready to attack the EMP tower, and at the stoplight he had found a sleeper and activated them. So he has his own means. He has some knowledge on how to activate sleepers, him being an android himself. When he put his fingers in between the person's eyes and they turned and they were triggered and awoken, I couldn't help but think, I was thinking of that Bone Thugs and Harmony video, Crossroads, when the Angel of Death comes and touches the dude's uncle in between the eyes and his eyes turn black. Yo, when I was younger, that shit was traumatizing. Yo, that video was so dope. The music is, the song is so dope, but that video was scary as hell when they came and got Uncle Charles. And right at that part when he's like, I miss my Uncle Charles, dog. Every day. Yo, if you never heard Crossroads before, go watch that video. Right after you look up Esther City from Final Fantasy VIII, go look up that Crossroads video by Bone Thugs and Harmony. And just imagine that being Mirror walking up to like a civilian and activating the sleeper within them. So yeah, we see Mirror 3, and he's looking at some strategies, some goals, some plans, and I say something about him falsifying documents, and that's because in his submission he said that he would falsify Atlas documents ordering electricity for the towers to be shut off. That's why there was a power outage. And then he says sabotage and protest the towers, which is why we had that whole scene of the rebellions on the news, spray painting the symbol of Anarchy, because I knew that he was trying to rebuild Anarchy's kingdom. And how will you react to opposition or threats? He would be using a persona, one of his personalities, to talk his way out and misdirect, vanish into the woodwork, investigate the opposition, and or regroup and try again as applicable. So that part right there, whereas if he were to reach any kind of threat, he said that he would vanish into the woodwork, investigate the opposition, and or regroup and try again as applicable. And that's why he wasn't going to sit here and fight over who was going to take over the tower. He regrouped, got his people, and called off the mission. in regards to him talking his way out and his ability to act, if you look at his profile on Anvil, he already has some personalities that he created and written out on his profile. And we saw 2 of those in the episode. So the Dorinthian woman that he was portraying, and that was Mirror 3 who was being interviewed, and that's why I was making her so dramatic, right? She had a tear coming down her eye. That was Mirror just acting. Okay, and that's why the things that he was saying seemed cryptic coming from a Dorinthian, but once you realize that it was him the whole time, it makes more sense. And then we saw his other personality, which is a homeless robot. One of his personalities, I can't recall the name, but it's a homeless robot. And I thought that would have been a great opportunity to fit that in there. And even the quote, "I don't work for free," is something that robot or that personality says per the profile. Many androids and psyquadrians are upset about the towers, making it real easy to find recruits. So that was a scene detail that Mirror put in there. And that's why we heard of there being androids and psyquadrians assisting with all of these rebellions. What are your what are your character's feelings? Mirror said, isolated, angry that my people are being oppressed, desperate to prove that I was worth creating, and in denial about anarchy's moral standing. And we saw that in the episode when he was being spoken to as the Dorinthian woman. He mentioned about feeling isolated and angry. That was just alluding to his feelings that he put in his submission. And the denial about anarchy's moral standing, we see that come out when Witch Doctor is being this voice of reason, this conscious, and says something along the lines of this chaos, this anarchy is what Anarchy 12 would have wanted. And Mirror 3 is like, that's not true. That's why Mirror 3 is just so complex. And we don't really know what Mirror 3 wants to achieve in rebuilding Anarchy's kingdom. So, and during this moment, we get to see Mirror in all its glory. And I gotta refer to, I don't know if Mirror is a he or she. I think it's just a it. So by him turning around, by Mirror 3 turning around with half of its makeup finished, that was to kind of show that he can be that's going to be hard. That Mirror can be anything that it wants to be, as far as, you know, its abilities go. Oh, and then we are also introduced to Witch Doctor in this scene, and the only reason we even brought in an injured person was to show that the Witch Doctor is somebody that is dedicated to healing people that are hurt. In the Witch Doctor's submission, they stated that they just want to stay hidden and help the injured. And this ordinary girl was purposely not obviously it had to be a person, because the android's not going to be able to be healed by voodoo magic. So we got a real person to also show that Mirror has some followers. There are people that are fighting for the androids, right? And this ordinary girl was shot. And notice I said she was shot by way of friendly fire, because I don't want people to hate Haven Guard or Jacob. I created the EMP tower idea for the sake of, drama. The Haven Guard are not murdering people. Okay, so that's why she was shot by way of friendly fire. I went out my way to say that. But it's okay because we have the Witch Doctor here. And to show that the Witch Doctor is not necessarily on anyone's side, this is an innocent bystander. That's why there's a moment where they're like, hey, like, please help us. The Witch Doctor tries to talk some sense into Mirror and try to reason with this person, because he's about to lead a lot of people to their deaths by attacking this EMP tower, right? So once the Witch Doctor saw he couldn't get through Mirror, and Mirror already had his mind made up and they were about to head out, Mirror's like, hey man, can you take care of that person? And the Witch Doctor sees this person bleeding out, getting ready to die, and I get to show off what the Witch Doctor can do, and his shadow jumping and at the excavation site. So we cut back to R-Type X at the excavation site. How R-Type X was making himself relevant to these runes. He stated that he wants to gain knowledge, gain and access to arcane energies powering the teleslabs and the climate, learning new energy and power. And that's why it was perfect to have Malross and these people who know a lot about magic and who are already studying these things to be here. I thought it was perfect. And maybe he can utilize them to be that connector to get what he's trying to achieve, because R-Type X has no ability that would justify him knowing how to just be able to convert energy or learn about it and make use of it, other than a hat that has energy capabilities. So for now, it would make sense that R-Type would take a sample of these so he can learn about it. Like he said, maybe get it to some people, because his goal is to gain knowledge of these teleslabs. So he breaks off a piece and for his own self. What actions will your character attempt to achieve their goal? His actions was to defeat hostile opposition, locate and earn the teleslabs, master the arcane energy, know my way around, familiar with world cultures, which is another reason why we had him drifting about, being with the people, sitting in homeless shelters, walking through the city, watching rebellions. He's familiar, he's comfortable in this environment. So soon after, we are then introduced to the Solarium Coalition, which is Malross Ingram, Min Gray, and Vernali. And I think at the time, Vernali was, at the time of the submission, which is what matters, is that Vernali was working with these individuals. And Malross Ingram, he is a leader of a whole entire cult. And his whole entire why he is making the teleslabs relevant to him is there's a possibility of using teleslabs as tracking beacons, and he wanted to discover a countermeasure to the teleslabs or discover the magic behind them for use in other areas. So I wanted to have this scene where we see Malross preaching to his coalition scientists, and he explains to them that they are all there by fate to capitalize on the peace that he had made between Anarchy and Tempest. And that whole thing, that whole truce, I thought it was something that the player added in their submission. They pretty much stated in their submission that I have made separate deals with both Anarchy and Haven Guard for peace and a no conflict agreement. And I thought that was a great touch that I wanted to make canon, because it kind of ties the knot on why we won't be seeing Anarchy. If you recall, Anarchy, he returned in a new android shell, and he is at his base, and on top of his base is a giant mech that he had stolen from Haven Gate, that he is controlling with his technomancy, and it's protecting Sector 12. And that's the last time we've seen Anarchy. Toward the end of the last episode, he was just pretty much stating that he was back, and is in his little Sector 12 that has gone dark again. And now we can justify why we're not going to see him as much, and that's because, or at all, and that's because there has been a truce between Anarchy and the people, Haven Guard and Tempest, and we're making Malross a part of that, because Malross Malgrim is stating that, and we're going to make that canon. So Malgrim is the reason that Anarchy is being chill. So we also learn a little bit about what the coalition has learned. Malgrim explains to R-Type X that there has been a discovery of this thing called Anomalite. An Anomalite is a lore item that was submitted by way of a lore pass, submitted by, I believe, Yatagan. An Anomalite is a really interesting piece of lore. Go check it out. It's on the site. And I thought it would be cool to tie that to the migrants. He discovers that migrant flesh has pieces of Anomalite in it. Now that's what's in the Anomalite lore that was submitted by Yatagan, is that Anomalite can be found in people who have been inside of some distortions. And and everybody in Anvil Station was spit out through a black hole. So that's why there's anomalite in their flesh. And anomalite can restore the chaos and distortions in time and space, which is what's going on with all the radiation damage in the Frontier District. And one of Malross's goals is to restore the Frontier District, and he had mentioned that. And I thought, okay, so let's tie anomalite to Malross and the migrants, and then let's tie the migrants and the anomalite to Malross's solution to fixing the Frontier District. So everybody's getting what they want here, and we were able to include a nice little piece of lore. And that's one of Malross's biggest discoveries so far, is how to restore radiation damage to like entire districts. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Malross does with that knowledge, or at least has a foot in the right direction on how to restore the Frontier District. It's this anomalite, and maybe that'll drive his actions in the next act. In addition to their current situation with the Teleslabs and trying to learn more about it. So yeah, R-Type X comes, he takes a piece of it for himself, and Malross tries to stop him peacefully, but R-Type X doesn't listen, and he wants to learn more about this. So he sticks around and he learns about the Coalition. He's very observant. He learns about the Coalition. Meanwhile, Min Gray and Vernali, they are meeting up with Malross to share their research and what they had discovered so far. And they all seem to agree that the Teleslabs are a risk. And going off of Vernali's hunch, he's the one that kind of presented the idea that this is a potential risk. And now they're all combining their minds, and they begin to experiment an alternative way. And we learn that Min Gray feels that the rock gods are capable of safeguarding the messages that are being transferred telepathically through this medium. And Eldritch Rock is the answer. And so she starts to strum her guitar, and they feel the message within the rock, and they are blown away by the music. And let's talk about Min Gray's submission here, so we can kind of see how all that translated into the episode. Why is this story arc relevant to your character? With the advent of Teleslabs, and by the way, Min Gray is the one who created this lore for the Communications Flames of Creation. She created the Teleslabs. So why it's relevant to her character? With the advent of Teleslabs, Min Gray sees a potentially exciting method of amplifying Gruul's. I'm not going to do it. Amplifying Gruul Saber with their arcane energies. Okay. So this whole scene is because of what she wants to do with Gruul Saber. What is your character's end goal? To successfully link a Teleslab with Gruul Saber and test the effect that telepathic amplification has on her abilities. What actions will your character attempt to achieve their goal? Various arcane research and cooperation with the Solarium Coalition members and potential allies, as well as on the ground recon. Scene detail 1. I'm freshly warmed up, having strummed a couple of riffs to myself on my way through town. What are your character's feelings? Apprehensive and more than a little cautious, yet beneath it all is the edge of excitement. Anything I should be aware of? The Solarium Coalition is deploying largely as a coordinated group. Min Gray is keeping tabs with the rest of the Coalition members in this arc, sharing information and rumors that she gathers while out in the field. Additionally, she bears the revolutionize keyword, which would be made use of in order to attain her goal of bolstering Gruul Saber's power with Teleslabs. If anything, it'll put standard electric amplifiers out of business. So her idea, we took her solution to the threat and made that into a safeguard, which is what Vernali wanted. And because of that, we got a nice little guitar performance out of her. We then cut back to the EMP towers, because the EMP towers, the only reason this even exists is because of Teleslabs. So I thought it was nice to have a nice little parallel side sub story arc going on with these Teleslabs. And again, they're heavily related. And we're back to Mirror getting ready to launch an attack on this EMP tower that is said to be one of the biggest EMP towers, and it's even linked to a Haven Guard base. And both players, Yatagan and Metzen Mir, both also wanted to attack EMP towers. So when I saw everybody's submission attacking the EMP towers, I was like, ooh, this is going to be really interesting, because you have Mirror, who is more of on some guerrilla shit, and then you have Yatagan and Metzen, who had this entire plan with the Arc Bionic Sagenar. He's not a bishop. I was saying bishop throughout the whole episode. Arc Bionic Sagenar. I'm probably mispronouncing the last name. I hope not. Is the J silent, Sagenar? Let me know. Oh, also another thing, if I had asked Malros, because he had mentioned in the submission about the truce, and then had some questions about it. If I ever misinterpret what you submit, definitely let me know if it's really severe, because what's going to happen is I'm going to try to build on it, and really I'm going to drive it, or attempt to. And if it's really wrong, then I definitely would need you to let me know. For example, there was a moment where I thought the Dizzy Wizard was old. I thought he was an old person. There's something he said in his submission or his character profile. This is a while ago, but it made me think that he was old. So I had him walking around like an old guy for a couple episodes, and then Dizzy's like, he's not old, and we cleared that up. I was thinking of he looked like Sheogorath from Oblivion in my head, but he's really a younger guy, I think. But anyway, I say that to say, if there's something that's severely wrong and I just misinterpreted it, definitely let me know. Mirror is coming to attack this EMP tower, and Yatagan and Metzen appeared and tell them to, hey, you may want to step back because we got it from here. And then they vanished. And then we see Mirror with laser beams pointed at him, and that's when we discover that up in one of these District 9 towers is Arc Bionic Sagenar, and Mirror has found himself in the middle of a secret operation that's taking place. These Legion snipers. So we then see Yatagan and Metzen take care of this EMP tower by themselves. The little scene where the guard is standing in front by himself, really wanted to do that to show the viewers that Yatagan has some sort of ability that makes it so that he can't be perceived by people he doesn't want to perceive him. So that's why it happened that way, and also wanted to be a little comedic by having the guard looking at the Labyrinth of Pan magazine, which the Labyrinth of Pan is a restaurant created by Razul, the demon chef, who's a new character. And the player chose the keyword for the Dorinthians, prestigious. And prestigious stands out a lot because no matter what product, it's a good keyword to choose if you're somebody who makes things, because no matter the quality of whatever you're creating, or no matter what it is, the prestige that comes along with it, because Dorinthians are known for their crafts, I think is what the lore said. The prestige that comes with the fact that you created it carries a lot of weight. So that's why I wanted to nod toward the Pan of Labyrinth, or the land of the Labyrinth of Pan, because of his keyword. His food is the bomb. It's prestigious. It's what's trending. Razul, he's so hot right now. So whenever I have an opportunity to link in some lore and connect dots to your characters and what your characters do, I will most likely take that opportunity. And I thought it would be cool. I was thinking of how can we make it so that to show the viewers that this person does not see Yatagan. Granted, he's not looking left or right at Yatagan. How can we really show that this guard cannot see Yatagan? Maybe we should make it so that he has some sort of like erection and he's embarrassed. Now, what would give him an erection? Some food, particularly Razul's great, amazing food would give this man an erection. So that's why that happened. And that's why when those doors swung open after Yatagan broke into the base doors, those other guards could see him because Yatagan didn't know they were there, so he couldn't conceal himself until it was too late. Like, they already saw him, so he couldn't conceal himself from them. And then that's when Matsun Mare comes, and Matsun Mare does all the heavy lifting. Surely Yatagan could have gotten involved, but I feel like Matsun Mare would be more suitable, and it was more appropriate to have Matsun there to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So we see Yatagan and Matsun take out the tower, and they get to the top, and Yatagan leaves his little calling card, which is apparently there's a sword, a type of short sword called a Yatagan, and that's what he leaves lodged in the control panel to show it was him. But a lot of the little things that happened during that scene, such as I wanted to bring back an old character that maybe some people cared for, or maybe they even forgot about him, but I wanted somebody to get bodied by one of these guys to show off their ability. And Yatagan, there was a specific detail in the submissions that Yatagan would have some sort of device that was created by Archbishop that would be a EMP nullifier of sorts. And I wanted to show that this teamwork that Yatagan, Matsun, and Seijinar had, and also show that Seijinar is a master at technology himself. So Yatagan is equipped with this tool that saved him from this EMP attack by an old character named Johnny Sniff, who is an old character from, I believe, season 1. And now he's a little bit older now, and he joined Haven Guard. But unfortunately, he tries to save the day and get some work done to him. By him getting hurt, it gave me another opportunity to have Witch Doctor come in and show that he's, out here in the streets during these hard times, trying to help people. With everything going on with the Teleslabs and the big fear about them being an opportunity for interdimensional beings to prey on the users of the Teleslabs, that seemed like a good way to link in the Uncryptids, which is something that we foreshadowed at the end of season 2, and I knew that I wanted to use them eventually, so I definitely wanted to use them in season 3, and it was submitted by R-Type X, so it's kind of cool that we get to use it, and they end up being his enemy, because I wanted to put the Uncryptids somewhere in the arc with the Teleslab arc. So when I saw R-Type X actually enter into this arc, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. So I wanted to start showing that the Uncryptids are still an issue, and the Teleslab thing was perfect. It was a perfect way to get Vernali involved as well. So by him being the type of character that he is, it's perfect that him and R-Type are here, because Vernali is he would be, I guess you can consider, an expert, on these types of things. And then R-Type X is, this is something, the Uncryptids are something that are part of his ancestors' history, and this is like an ancient nemesis. So I feel like R-Type X might know a little bit about these, but he never fought one of these things. Because it seems like these are really old things. I would think. I don't know. According to the lore, it seems like they're probably really old. So this is a cool team. I'm really excited to see what they do. You know what I mean? But so I say that to say that I want to start bringing in this Uncryptid piece. So this was a good place to interject it. There's a scene when we see these pervs, these people that use Teleslabs to voyeur and watch other people. They're doing their little pervy stuff in the alleyway, and Cervantes, her goal was to steal these Teleslabs for the research for the Gokin, and she also has the ability to manipulate reality, and she also said that she wanted her scene to use these things and kind of be comical. So I thought it would be cool to have this scene where these people are watching like all this nasty stuff on their phones, or their devices using the teleslabs. And Cervantes comes in. Not only does she rob them, but she steals these teleslabs from these people, just straight from under their nose using reality manipulation, which is her ability. And I was watching at the time I was watching Beetlejuice when I was on this part. So remember the scene in Beetlejuice when they're all sitting at the table and they start dancing because they're possessed. But it's all an illusion. Well, maybe it was real on some poltergeist shit, but okay, here's a better example. That's what I was thinking of was the Beetlejuice scene. The Beetlejuice scene when shit's just going down. It's just like getting really wacky. And it seems real, but it's really some phantasm, some ghost stuff. And I also saw Aladdin recently with Will Smith, and that whole thing when he introduces himself, and he changes different sizes, and there's multiple versions of him, and they're dancing and singing. And it's all some genie illusion, and that's kind of what I was imagining when Cervantes was doing her thing. Like they were trapped in this illusion while she was robbing them. But also because they were just intruding on people's privacy, she kind of flipped it on them by, embarrassing them and throwing them out on So Cervantes, she said that the teleslabs are liberating. Liberating is good. And then she put ... money. So that was why they were relevant to her, because they were money. And her end goal was to get more teleslabs to sell. Also to help my Gokin any way I can, steal what I can, charm and outwit information for my benefit. Whatever it takes, who dares wins. Use what I can to do what I want. Cervantes has her legacy skill is burglary butterfly, the impossible thievery. I won't leave empty-handed. That's the name of the ability. And it's Cervantes' legendary thievery skills are so great that she's capable of stealing more than just physical items. She has honed her thieving skills to such heights that they make master thieves look like average pickpockets. And also in her submission, she said that she wanted to work the room with mesmerizing presence to get all that she can. So that's exactly what she did. She worked the entire alleyway with her mesmerizing presence, which made them, her victims, feel like they were in some sort of illusion, some sort of porn, some kind of fantasy porn. And then she ended up, like I said, flipping it on them, and they were the ones that lost out on a lot. In regards to the porn, I was in the Discords and somebody had said something, the conversation about teleslabs popped up, and one of the players, I think it was Yadagon, he said something about, man, this could be like some crazy porn, or that's what it's used for. And I thought that was funny, and that's where that came from. So this scene was to show that the Gokin are at work. They do have a little agenda, and that's to collect these teleslabs, and Cervantes is stealing an entire one. And she gets in contact with R-Type X and they connect. And I think at this point, R-Type X is thinking, okay, she has an entire teleslab. This little piece that I have should suffice. So there shouldn't be, I wouldn't imagine there would be any beef between R-Type and Malross in regards to who's going to be using these teleslabs. I don't know. We'll have to see. But that scene was a segue into one of these pervs run away and gets attacked by one of these uncryptids, and the uncryptid is attracted by the music that Min Gray is rocking out in the neighboring district. So Samuel Maximus is an investigator who is investigating missing people. Samuel Maximus, why is the story arc relevant to you? Well, he said there are multiple missing persons cases within the area, which contains unusual key slabs and other suspect activity. So he was investigating missing people, and he said that it was connected to there's particular slabs that these disappearances have been happening around. Now, if you do recall that there are multiple cases of missing people, not only because of maybe uncryptids are actually, well, maybe they're just more so killing people, but they could have something to do with missing people. And then you got the Survey Day. So we still don't know which one it is. It could be a mix of both. So Samuel Maximus is tied. He's tied to this heavily. What is your character's end goal? To find the missing people and culprit, regardless if it involves said key slabs or not. What action will your character attempt to achieve their goal? Use time powers to turn the slabs back to see previous contacts that the missing people had. I definitely wanted to show that he could rewind time. So since this person was dead, we just used this as an opportunity to reveal the uncryptids and re-reveal the uncryptids and show that they're here in the city. And he was able to see that. Sam Maximus is one of the first people to be able to see that. And so he goes off to figure out where it went. So we cut back to the excavation site and we see Min Gray. She's still in the coalition. They're still experimenting and making use of what seems to be working, these amplifiers, and she's shielding the communication with her Eldritch Rock power. And it's at this time when we know that the uncryptids are approaching because they're attracted to the sound. And mind you, the uncryptids, we still don't know much about them as far as what they can do. Like, we know they can kill you and they're a nightmare, but it's going to be, you know what, we might need to expand some lore on the uncryptids. Yeah. Can someone remind me to do that if I forget? But the uncryptids start showing up, and Vernali senses them with one of his, because he's an occult person, right? So he, it's likely he has something on him that'll let him know if, something is different or changing in the air. And he's notified that there's something nearby, and he looks around the crowd and he doesn't see anyone. And then he sees this uncryptid at the time, just what this looks like, a really tall person based off of the description in the lore. They're just really tall. And I the way I envisioned it, that looks pretty weird. Like when you see like a whole crowd of people, just imagine a whole crowd of people, and then there's this really tall one. So he looks around, he sees that. And he goes out there and, he tries to protect the people. He casts his flame, and because he's a pyromancer as well. I don't know if a lot of people were expecting that. The cool thing about this is when there are characters, like majority of the people in the story are going to be player characters, and they all have their own abilities and skills and personality and social place. If you go to their profiles on Anvil, and you can learn about each of them. But Vernali, he busts out the flames, woof, right? But the uncryptid is this multi-dimensional creature, like very Slender Man-ish, and it just walks through. And that's when R-Type X comes in, and he kind of holds them off a bit. And we don't know what it takes to kill an uncryptid. I don't even know if there is a way to kill an uncryptid. And as opposed to, I don't think we should determine what that is. I think we should go with the flow, and I want to see how everybody in this arc attempts to take these uncryptids out. And whichever one is the coolest. A lot of things can play into it, but I just want to see what the players do, and then I'm going to react to that, because if they fail to do that, the story can change, and it could also change the power of these uncryptids. Because I liked, if when there's a problem that everybody has to deal with, if it goes unchecked, it can come back. So for the most part, I want everybody to be in each other's way. But in a case like this, it looks like we have a legitimate NPC enemy right here. Very similar to what we might see later in the Nebby Haven colony, because you got Onric, the player of Onric. He created this whole enemy called Brezalek, and he's talking about it in his submissions. He's trying to make that something that happens, and I try to work with everybody if it can make for a good story or fit in the story in a good way. So we're going to start to see some NPC action here, and I'm going to play with that. I'm going to experiment with some things throughout Act 2, but more on that at another time. Let's continue. The Uncrypted show up, and R-Type X, Vernali, and Min Gray are able to hold them off, especially with Min Gray's rock power. These multi-dimensional creatures seem to be quite effective to get them to back off a bit with the sonic waves of Gruul Saber. So that's where we leave off with Electronic Panic. They discovered they were able to learn a lot about these teleslabs, come up with a safeguard, a countermeasure, so people can start to calm the hell down. And they also learn, and they might not know why the Uncryptids are arriving. Maybe they didn't connect the dots yet, that it was the Gruul Saber. But it is really a mix of the Gruul Saber and the teleslabs, because they were already coming to the teleslabs, likely because that's where a lot of people congregated in regards to the missing person cases. That's what I was envisioning. And now, with Min Gray banging on a trash can, strumming on a street light, or do I have it back? Drumming on a trash can, on the street light. I don't know. Calling me. Remember that, Doug? Min Gray, she's rocking out, right? And she starts attracting him, but I'm not sure if she knows that yet. So that's where we left off there. And when we pick up again, I'm going to set the stage so you know where exactly you're going to pick up from. But just keep in mind that, these things are a threat. They might not be an immediate threat, but they are now in the town. They're in the city for sure. And you start to see them, and that doesn't mean that they're going to just straight out attack you. I kind of see them like, they got to be somewhat intelligent, because they have some really great stalking abilities. So we'll figure out what happens. Gray areas. This is a very important story arc. All three are important. Whereas the Teleslab arc, I knew was going to introduce a new enemy, or an old enemy, the Uncryptids, a new old enemy. That would be a major thing. Gray areas is going to have a very large impact on the government, the governing structure of Haven, if any. Maybe even the world is what it's looking like, because Unity Atlas looks like they're trying to combine the continents. But gray areas is very important, and a lot of big characters are involved in this particular story arc. So I wanted to start this off by showing a montage of all the hate that the people have for the minister and what the minister is doing. And this is led by Ali. Ali is doing a bit of social engineering here, but it's not evil. Everybody, Ali really doesn't like the minister. The people really don't like the minister, and it's all for a good reason. And there are many perspectives on it. But everybody has come to the consensus that the minister is just a bad person. So Ali is a big influential person in this whole ordeal, and that was part of her submission. Her whole entire submission was about getting people to like the Gate Center, Tempest, rallying against the minister and what he's doing, and using her social influence to support Tempest and the Gate Center and getting control of the city. Because I guess they all talked behind the scenes that was that they were going to have Tempest move in. So she was supporting by way of social engineering. And then you got Jacob coming, Jacob Bastion coming in, and he's straight up telling you about the Manticore Rebellion and what that consists of. And then the minister is seeing all this, not knowing that the attack has already started. There's been a leak of information, and we see Leaf. Leaf is a character who has some ulterior motives, trying to go, off the radar and delete any trace of them from any city records and information. But also, meanwhile, they're obviously working with Gate, and is hacking into the minister's servers and getting information that's going to help them fulfill a plan that comes to fruition in the end of the episode. And that's this whole thing that Ali started. All these memes led to the discovery of a loophole called the Haven Lord, which is a title that was submitted in the Flames of Creation. It was the second place winner, or one of them, and it was Haven Lord, which was an alternate title. And there could be different Haven Lords based that govern different things. So I twisted that into saying that this is a title that does exist. It was hidden by a governor advocate, and because Ali was going so ham with bringing awareness and getting people to express their disdain for the minister, get him out of the office turned into there's got to be a way, and there has to be a way turned into digging and finding some information about this Haven Lord. And Tempest ends up getting involved, and he announces that he is going to become the Haven Lord. And that was Tempest's end goal for the episode, was to become the Minister of Finances and Resources. And it was also Jacob's goal to get Tempest in that seat as well. Jacob said he was trying to get Tempest to become like a Grand Chancellor. But since we had so many other titles, I didn't want to just pull from a new title out of nowhere. So I'm like, we might as well use one of the titles. And I thought Haven Lord was really appropriate, especially because it can be attached to different aspects of, things. And he's always for the people. So Haven Lord for the people just sounded like a really cool title. And we went with that. But yeah, I want to share what Tempest, his submission was. The way he was making himself relevant to the plot was the minister is not handling the resources in a way that benefits Haven. Gate should be in charge of the resources. Okay. And then what his character's end goal? The end goal is to have Tempest placed as Minister of Resources. Pow. And then that's why that happened. And what actions will your character attempt to achieve their goal? Tempest will hold a speech using his perk of reading the crowd to have a huge reaction. He will sway public opinion, and that's what he did with the help of Ali. It was very easy for all of them. The minister is taken aback and not prepared for the political fight, is what scene detail number 1 that he put in there. And scene detail number 2 was the minister is arrogant and plays into Tempest's hands. And that's why that was the real doom of the minister. Because remember, Syrian, he has the ability to really take control using his influence, and he was doing that slowly but tactfully. And he was giving the minister some time to change his mind. So Syrian is actually arriving to talk to him again, and it was the minister's ego and pride and stubbornness that allowed him to get this bad in this situation. And that's when Syrian had to kind of really step in and turn up the influence to get him to step down, which ultimately led to him, where he is now. And that was because of a detail that Tempest put in his submission. The minister is arrogant and plays into Tempest's hands. Another thing that made this very, very easy for Tempest was the fact that he's a celebrity punk type. So he just had a lot of star power in his corner. And just him alone probably would have been enough to achieve his goals. But it was a clean success, very, very easy, because of all the teamwork and all the people uniting together, including Marshall Mesa and Dizzy Wizard, uniting together to make this happen. I was really, really hoping that somebody would go for this role and try to take it or become the replacement. Because I didn't want to have an NPC play such a heavy role. I want the players to generally take the place of those roles. So when I saw Tempest say, yeah, I want to become the minister, I'm like, cool. And we're not even going to call it the minister. We're going to pull one of those really great lore submissions that were put in. So, hey, whenever we have Flames of Creation or any kind of world lore building contest, definitely submit, because, whether it wins or not, it definitely might get used later. So things got really, really, really serious. So while all this information is breaking, we see Syrian arriving to the minister, and he is bombarded with people who were like, hey, how can you work for this person? Meanwhile, I'm sure the viewers had gotten it by now. Well, I don't know. I don't know if everybody knew that Syrian was working with Gate, because now we have this thing called role punk, where everybody's like role playing their characters, and whatever time space they're in during the scenario, they probably expressed that they were working with Gate, but they didn't. We haven't really seen that like canonically in the series yet. So I don't know how many people knew that Syrian was working for Gate. So that probably was. Hopefully that was really cool when everybody discovered that Syrian was planted by Gate. But anyway, Syrian is, everybody's like, how can you work for this person? And then he's attacked. And this whole scene was because I wanted to do something with Sasha. And I also wanted to show that people are feeling really strongly, about some things, to the point where there's hitmen. And so I wanted to get Sasha involved, because, I wanted the bodyguard to be able to, guard Syrian. So that whole scene was not only to show what Sasha can do, but that bounty hunter was not just any bounty hunter. That bounty hunter is actually an NPC from maybe the prequel or the first episode. May have been the prequel. A really old NPC that was a bounty hunter that became friends with Blau Himmel, who was a old player from a long time ago, and she was a scientist in the Gate Center. And there's a couple of funny, one of my favorite characters, there's some scenes way back where she's like this normal person that has these gamma mutations, and she's learning about her gamma mutation. She has these misadventures, and she stumbles upon a bounty hunter named Nakama. And Nakama is always, he frequents Smaven's Sandwich Maven's Haven sandwich shop. He frequents that place a lot, and so does she. And so one day they meet in there, and they become like really great friends. But meanwhile, whenever they're hanging out, the ongoing gag is that he's always, in the middle of doing some business, hunting somebody down or protecting her. And so we see him working and he's here to take out Syrian. So he takes out a couple people, but man, it was the wrong day, because Sasha Petrov, who is one of the best bodyguards in all of Haven City history, takes him down. So Syrian arrives to the minister's quarters upon the breaking of the news of the Haven Lordship. And he tries to convince the mayor. He tries to convince the minister one more time to change his mind, but the minister clearly has his mind made up. Thankful, because all the other advisors are on the side of continuing to do what they're doing. So we then go into Camp Rust to see the conditions that they are living in. And I just wanted to use this scene to show how dangerous it is to be in Camp Rust, because not all the migrants are, it's like if you took Haven City and put it in a spaceship and sent it to another planet. Kind of, maybe a couple districts. So not everybody and not all the migrants are allies, you know. So it's dangerous, and the guards they're tripping kind of, you know what I mean? The guards are they aren't too nice, and tensions are high because there are sleeper androids in the mix of the Iron Republic, or at least people are still paranoid of that because you don't know. But there were some guards that were being kind of really violent, and that's when we're introduced to Grillian Point, who is a character, a new character. And why this was all relevant to Grillian Point is because what he stated in the submission was he hated to see when the way mutants were being treated. He didn't want to see them discriminated against, migrants. So he wants to fight for the migrants. And what he does is his end goal was to let the migrants have a home in the tank, and he has the ability to manipulate his voice to make people feel a certain way and rally or instill fear in them. So his whole goal was to use his voice to make migrants rally and assist Rezanok. So I guess him and Rezanok had a plan to go in there, and he was part of it. And he was going to use his voice to assist. That scene where the child wants that last bit of Dizzy Whiz candy, the whole part when he's looking at his arm and sees those wounds, I just thought that would have been a good way to show what Grillian Point is about. So he teaches the kid a little bit about his mutation so he doesn't have to go through all that or as much pain anymore. Grillian Point is interesting because that is almost the exact same ability, or very similar to Deathtude. And Deathtude can learn abilities and watch and observe and learn how to use them better than the person doing them. Not use them as in actually use them, but learn and know how to use these things. He just doesn't have the capability. But that's part of the ability, is being able to know how to do something you can't even do. And so he learns how to do it better, and then he teaches it. Grillian Point, his ability Power Book, while teaching other people on how to control their mutation, I took note of what their powers could do and how to counter, these powers fast. Of course, I use this notebook to help out other people's powers faster and record any changes with their powers. So very, very similar. And I think there's something there. There's something that we can work with there. So let's keep an eye on Grillian Point and see what his actions are going to be going forward. But yeah, Grillian Point is one of many characters who got together to cater to assist with the Camp Russ situation. And I was happy to see so many characters unite for one thing, for something that their characters care about. Because going into this whole Camp Rust situation, I was actually prepared to write about how bad Camp Rust was, like really, really bad. I thought it was going to be really, really bad, but because everybody came and was doing something with Camp Rust, contributing in some way, I couldn't, because they were there taking care of things. They were getting food. That was going to be one of the things. People were going to be hungry. They were getting food. They were getting taken care of by Mesa Mart and the supplies that are in Mesa Mart. And that was going to be something I was prepared to write about, how the resources are extremely low in Camp Rust. But really, a lot of people came there and really reversed what I was actually thinking I was going to have to write. And I thought that was really cool. That's how you have an effect on the narrative. So if any characters were to get together, and even if one character was working at something, it's going to change the environment. It's going to change the story. It's going to change the narrative. So if you look at Grillian's character sheet, you see that he literally is just a character that really cares for others. And I really, really look forward to seeing what else this person is going to do. We then are introduced to Aura, and Aura, the reason all this is relevant to her is because Aura is used to helping new and different people, so she wants to aid migrants in their transition. That's what she put in there, and so I immediately knew that Aura was going to play some sort of role that as a protector of these people in Camp Rust. What is your character's end goal? Aura wants to protect the migrants and help them deal with such an upsetting arrival, possibly making friends along the way. What actions will your character attempt to achieve their goal? Aura will focus on protecting the migrants and stopping anyone who tries to hurt or displace them. So, though I don't think all because these are more so Haven Force, the Minister's people. It's not Haven Guard. So Haven Force, they're a little bit out of control, and they're following commands, but they're probably not the best. Not all of them are the best, people, apparently. So they are very hostile, and that's why Aura played such an important role in that aspect, because she's helping people on the street level. Because they were pretty much going to kill Grillian, it seems like. They were quick to accuse him of being a spy or an assassin because he has a blade in his cane. Just little details like that. That was in his profile. A blade in his cane. And when I saw that, I'm like, that's going to be my reason to make it so these people act hostile towards Grillian. Little side note there. But nothing too extreme. Nobody, it didn't have to be a really serious fight or anything like that. So she pretty much comes in and flexes her muscles, and those guards flee. The part when they greet each other and they introduce herself. The part when Aura introduces herself to Grillian and Grillian introduces himself to Aura, and then he starts to talk afterwards, and she tells him, "Shh, and let's take this somewhere else." That was just a nod to an inside joke, because Aura, the player of Aura, in Discord, whenever people would talk inside of the introduce your character room, he would always go in there and tell people to, take your conversations to a more appropriate room. And it kind of became a meme. So that's what that was. We then see Rezanok, the original migrant, the original life form from outside of the tank, show up. And it's been some time, right? The last time we seen Rezanok, he was liberated from his abyssal vessel by Ali, and then captured and reunited with Nam-Ki by way of her special discipline that involves tarot cards, and she can also trap consciousness in them. So when he was freed from the abyssal vessel that he was hanging out in during his dark time, she was able to pull him back in. And we don't know what's going on with Nam-Ki and Rezanok now, but here he seems to be right here, and he has a plan, he has an agenda, and he turns himself in. They scan him and see that he's not from, there's no DNA match. Little do they know he's always been here. So of course they think that he is one of the migrants, and they put him in Camp Rust. And he would then go on later to rally everybody in there to break out of Camp Rust. But we'll get to that later. Tempest announces that he is going to be the Haven Lord of the people, which counters the Minister's plan. And Leaf was able to get some kind of data and install a backdoor by way of Leaf's hacking, and threatens they use this to leverage against the Minister, and the Minister was not prepared for this type of political approach. And that was the result of what Tempest had submitted, how the Minister would be knocked off balance by this approach. Syrian then convinces him to step down using his influence, and the minister does indeed step down. But I wanted the minister to be assassinated and killed, to show that the Survey are everywhere and they are a threat, and to show that the minister was right when he was saying that it would be wrong, or not wrong, but it would be dangerous to share this information with other people because they are watching him. And we got a chance to see at the moment he stepped down, out of fear that he would use that data and share it with Tempest or whatever, the Survey killed him. But Tempest is already in possession of the data and the research that the minister has done so far. Oblivion sees Tempest's announcement. She's looking through people's windows and she's on her way to the gate center. But because she is an experiment, an unfinished experiment, she goes through bouts of metamorphosis, of transformation, transmogrification, and she hears these words in her head, of a necrophene language talking about gods, necrophene gods. Because remember, the Survey worship the green gods. The green gods were working with the necrophenes, the instigators, so on and so forth. So they kind of took on this religion here, and we hear these words, these necrofiendish languages in her head. Gods, what gods? And that was some dialogue that the player submitted. Gods, what gods? And I'm pretty sure when they submitted that, they wanted her to say it like, gods, what gods? Like, there's no gods. But I just kind of put a spin on it saying, gods, what gods? Like, what are these voices? I keep hearing gods talking about gods. What gods are these voices talking about? And that's only because Oblivion was not really in a situation where she would have an upper hand and say something as cocky as that. But she is tracked by cultists, and that's because I knew that I wanted Haven Guard to find her in these alleyways, because one of her details was that she would stick close to the alleyways, and I wanted Jacob, Octavian, and Rokum to see this thing. Because now I want Octavian and Rokum, based off of their submissions about how they can kind of see the minister is in a gray area. I wanted them to be able to witness the real problem, which was the Survey. So that's why we see Jacob, Octavian, and Rokum walking. Rokum tells him that, there is something odd about this major push against the minister. Rokum is noticing that the Survey, or noticing some extra propaganda mustered against the minister. It seemed maybe there were some things that were a little excessive, and he became a little hit to that. And he shares this insight. He says that the minister isn't telling us everything, and he's acting as this voice of reason that can kind of see both sides from all angles. But Jacob has a plan, and I feel like he's too enticed to listen, and he's ready, for war. He's ready to take this minister out, get things in motion. And he's focused on he's focused on a lot of other things to be trying to play devil's advocate. So while Rokum and Octavian are being this voice of reason, they hear a scream, and it's Oblivion. And then we get a little scene where they were able to save Oblivion from these cultists, and we get a little foreshadowing there. One of the cultists says something along the lines of, the Harbinger will be the new day. And they are trying to capture her. Like, they're really, really trying to capture her. She's very important to the Survey. So is Oblivion the Harbinger? We don't know, but maybe. But I also thought it was interesting that Octavian would meet somebody like Oblivion, and because I think Octavian would be the perfect character to kind of take Oblivion in and calm her down with his ability to manipulate and suppress emotions. So he's able to calm her down a little bit, but the gunshots get her, kind of breaks her out of it again, and she gets away. And Jacob and all of them are like, hey, yo, what the hell was that? And Jacob, Octavian was able to identify her before she left, because he also has black market knowledge. And there were some symbols on her. I felt like it would make sense to put symbols on her, and that's how Octavian, that's how we get Octavian some bonus for being so diverse in his skill set. By having that black market skill, it justifies him seeing and noticing that she is somebody that was captured by the Survey Day, because the Survey Day have a long history of capturing and kidnapping and slave trade. We've seen a lot of that in the earlier seasons. So Octavian saw that, and he's kind of putting two and two together, and realizes that yes, this is indeed the Survey Day, and they are after her. They already had her at one point. So Tempest becomes the Haven Lord, and he's able to overthrow the minister. And then the minister is soon after killed. Cirium, Rokum, and Octavian then get together. They combine their thoughts and realize that there is a big issue with the Survey Day, and they inform Tempest of this threat. And of course, Tempest is already aware of the Survey Day, but he didn't know that they were still so active and strong and powerful. And then also, we see Oblivion finally reach the gate center, and she passes out. And I wanted to end it. I wanted it to end that arc in Act 1 that way, because Oblivion is a big factor. I'm making Oblivion a big factor in alongside this overarching issue with the tank. Oblivion is what the tank is going to experience if Tempest and his people don't come up with a plan on how to fix the tank, the energy crisis, the outer protection that the tank had from space. Oblivion is a very appropriate word for this entire saga, I think. The Nebby Haven colony arc. I was really hesitant to bring us back to Nebu. I really wanted to focus on the city. But the Flames of Creation, Nebby Haven colonies won. So I had to gotta extend the story out to Nebu again, and we're gonna make it a good one. And it's also why I'm having the whole bridge thing occur, because I would like to bring it back to Haven City. But more on that later. Nebby Haven colonies. So when Nebby Haven colony starts off, we started off from the perspective of some strange exotic insect flying through the forest. We get to see some of the strange fauna and flora in this new continent, this new Nebu. And now this bug lands on Razul, and Razul, the demon chef, is another new character. And we quickly learn that this insect is no insect at all, but it's really this life form, this life form called X1. And X1 is another player character who is a AI bio slime, something along the lines of it's like nano. The player says he's nano, alien nanobites, but it's like mixed with I don't know what it is. Neither does the player. We're trying to figure it out. At least I think we are. But anyway, this creature is able to morph into whatever it wants to look like, and very, very accurately. And it's bio slime. So when it lands on Razul and Razul crushes it, we see it appear behind him. And I wanted it to make it seem like, oh, this is going to be a problem. Like fight. But really, the entire submission of X1, outside of anything, responding to any major like threats to nature, the majority of the submission was about and blending in with the people, nature, and investigating the area and people's, intentions and stuff, and learn about, the people there. And everybody is new to the planet, including X1, but X1 is a little bit different because X1 was on the side of the ship when it landed. When it was landing, it jumped off the ship. That was that blue blob that we saw. So X1 was able to get a head start and immediately begins to assimilate with the jungle. So Razul ends up squashing this insect, and it turns out that it was just X1 who appears behind him, doppelganging him, because his goal was to blend in with the people, and he runs into the people and he finds Razul, which is the perfect person to learn about culture and so on and so forth. And Razul and Azul become partners for a little bit. And I more so saw this as Razul's goal was to come with the colonists over to Nibu for the purpose of searching for new ingredients for some new recipes. So when you have X1 who's looking to learn about the people in these colonists and blend in, and you have Razul who's also here to discover and explore and serve these people some great food, I thought attaching X1 to Razul would be a nice little interesting little story arc to follow throughout Act 1. So they have some little adventures there, and X1 assists Razul with his catering throughout the episode. So then we cut to the colony that's being built, or at least outside the colony. We see Kuth and the Wanderers, Morris and Nomad, cutting down trees, clearing the area of creatures and monsters. In fact, they're fighting a giant plant monster. It was perfect that these three, the Wanderers, decided to take this route. The Nebby Haven colony arc, I was hoping would consist of a mix of people coming from Haven to find opportunity over here, and also a mix of the migrants jumping off early. Because remember, we wanted to start the episode or the season 3 with the migrants arriving, but because there was a little bit of misunderstanding, we ended up doing a slight little time skip just to give the migrants time to say that they got involved in different factions and met different people and did certain things in the city. Also, one of the players in their submission mentioned that they wanted to do a little tag team move between Nomad and Kuth called the Kuth Cannon, and had to find a way to put that in there because I knew there wasn't going to be any outright war or any major conflict in the first act based off of what everybody submitted. I knew that it was going to be just a little bit of friction, but nothing to the point where they would need to use the Kuth Cannon on anybody. The Kuth Cannon. So we could show how, some of the creatures and how dangerous it is in the Nebby Forest. And there's going to be a lot of that going forward. Like, we're going to have some lore contests because we got to get some flora and fauna over here in this new Nebby Haven continent. But yeah, the Wanderers are they are a faction of explorers, it seems like. Let me pull up their applications in the Discord. They have it listed. The Wanderers, bringing the truth to light. They are mercenary explorers, a loosely organized league of like-minded individuals bound by a common desire of the exploration of Haven and its people, places, and cultures. So they go to Nebby. They go to Nibu, not Haven, because that's suicide. So it makes a lot of sense that they're over here. I'm laughing because I'm looking at their roster and they have a new person in their ranks, and I think it's hilarious. So we also see that Nomad has the ability to bring them to and fro much faster than just walking. This bridge, this bridge, the Eventide Spatial Bridge. And they are able to get back to the colony. Now, the colony they are a group of people coming from Haven City. They are a group of people coming from the migrant fleet. And they are, the people coming over from Haven are led by Haven Guard. Haven Guard is supporting these people coming over to New Nebu for a new life. And these people are led, these colonists are led by these Haven Guard diplomats, or people standing in as Haven Guard leaders that are making sure that these groups, these communes that are coming over from Haven get along. And there's these three prominent figures, but we have a character named Aika Sutaimi. Aika Sutaimi, number 2. Aika Sutaimi 2. And she is a android companion using her unique vocal abilities to pursue a career in music, though her music is only a placeholder in her mind as she attempts to discover the reason behind her creation. That said, she realized she enjoys being in the limelight. And oh man, her submission was very interesting because half of it is she really wants to use her platform to bring peace. But also there's a couple times where she mentions that this is really because she wants to improve her career. This is going to help her career. So she's thinking about it from a business standpoint in regards to her career, but also she wants to help people. So she reminds me of how we have a lot of celebrities today who get involved in politics. So she is there to make sure that everybody is getting along, and she uses her vocal manipulation and her persuasion abilities to do that, and it works a lot. But I really like the idea of this character because they are using their punk type the way they should. That's a very creative way to use your celebrity punk type. In a way, because she is an android and she's doing something so big that could have the potential to bring a lot of world peace, or at least in the New Nebu continent. It is the opposite of what people think of when they think of androids. Currently, they think of these android rebellions and they're them attacking and being hostile. So that's why John Quill said what he said when he was trying to encourage Aika. He says, Yatagan doesn't have to be the face of androids. There can be androids that can do great things like what you're doing. So because we have Aika coming here to do that alongside Shaman Onric and John Sage Quill, because John Sage Quill and Onric seem to have, based off their submissions and their punk types and their backgrounds, they are already very skilled individuals. And Aika is very new at trying to be what she's trying to be. So that's why we have the scene of them providing counsel for Aika, because they really truly believe that she could be the piece that holds all of this together. That's what we're going to paint for Aika. That's her current goal, is to achieve what she's trying to achieve with this colony. Everybody should have some personal goals. These are what you're trying to aim for by Act 3. Shaman Onric is also here, but he is representing the Callidians coming over from Haven. And I'm so glad that somebody is taking on that Callidian role, that Callidian leader role, because that by far, initially Shiro was Callidian, but that's not the case now. But by far, that has been the most underrepresented race that we have. And it's a weird race. I mean, they're ugly. They're really ugly. They're cannibalistic. But because of Onric, we now see that they can be civilized and be represented in different ways. Onric is bringing them over here so they can finally have a new home and start fresh, because they were always mistreated over in Haven. And then John Sage Quill, the Honorable John Sage Quill, is doing the same thing, but for the Nebi people. There's a lot of foreshadowing going on with something that may or may not happen, but we keep hearing about Onric talking about this Brezalek Khalidian character who is apparently some sort of terrible person who is a Khalidian, and they're actually coming over to Nebu to get the Khalidians away from Brezalek, but Onric has a feeling that Brezalek is going to somehow interfere and get involved. And I'm trying to paint it like, we don't have anything to worry about, Onric. Like, you're tripping. We have the Haven Guard. But wouldn't that be true though? You know, is this Brezalek person that bad that Haven Guard can't take care of them? I don't know. We'll have to find out. Also, the colonists. So the Wanderers are over here, and they are in charge. The Wanderers are in charge of expanding the colony, clearing the area, making sure it's safe for all these new people that are here. And the person that brought all these people over here, or assisted in bringing these people over here, was Louis Lefty, and that was a godsend, because otherwise it just would have been some cargo ships and stuff. But by Louis Lefty joining this arc, yes, we have somebody that could be the one bringing them over here, getting trade going, smuggling. And this is perfect for Louis Lefty. And the reason that I really wanted to make it look like it was perfect, because I knew, what was going to happen later on when Atlas came and crashed the party. So really tried to make it show us what Louis was getting involved with, that, things were going to be perfect for Louis, and still can be. Let's take a look at Louis' submission here. Why is this story arc / plot relevant to your character? New trade is always good for me. I have also discussed working in the Frontier District with Malros. Oh shit. What is your character's end goal? Plan A, help establish a colony in Nebu. Plan B, safely transplant colonists into a better location. What actions will your character attempt to achieve their goal? By smuggling resources into Nebu, defending the colony, and smuggling the refugees into safety if need be. How will you react to opposition or threats? Louis will fight mutants attacking the colony, but will try to cooperate with player characters. Scene detail 1. Louis' friendly nature means people are more willing to help him, which is why I was elaborating on how successful he has been the night prior when he woke up that morning. Scene detail 2. The jungle of Nebu provides ample cover to smuggle things. This is why I was saying he was doing so much smuggling, and it was easy. It was a perfect place to do all that with. What are your character's feelings? Treating these transplants as refugees isn't the answer, but maybe I can help this group to help the others. Man, Louis is such a great person. So as Onric, Sage Quill, and Ica speak to the people, we see that lurking in the crowd is Legion, who is a spy for Atlas. Particularly, we can say that he is deployed by Jace Beleren, because it was Jace Beleren who said he would be using spies, and Legion said he would be keeping an eye on things. So combine that together, and Legion is Jace Beleren's spy, keeping an eye on things, because he's a night skin and can replicate himself. And throughout the episode, we start to see more and more of Legion within the colony. But he has been noticed by Myra, because Myra is a spy as well, and she's up to her things, and she's always up to her shenanigans, and she is somewhere out here underground cooking up something with an ally named Korozia, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And they're working on some things. Now, Myra supports Atlas. Myra is one of the founding Atlas. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremiah, but Myra was, what came first? You and Atlas, or you and Myra? But she's still supporting Atlas, just off the radar a bit, to my knowledge. I don't really know what their relationship is, but based on the submission, they are working parallel from each other. They are working with each other, but we don't really know. And maybe she likes it like that. I think that's what it is. I think it's a commitment thing. But the part when we see that she has her clones by way of an artifact called the Foresight Dorja, which is like the cousin of the Fist of the Endless. Not based off the lore, but just how it came in the meta. But she hands them orders, and that's just because I know she's planning something. So we're going to say that whatever she's doing, it involves those orders. And Cortec chips. Now, Cortec chips was just to show that she is in support of Atlas, because Atlas is working with Legion, and Cortec chips are owned by Legion. He is the CEO of Cortec. And let me kind of explain to you how this is going to work. Because everything in this, like I had mentioned, everything in this world is new. There's so many things that have not been discovered because we have not created it yet. Everything that is submitted is added to the world, and then it exists. And you all come first. There is no setting. It's world building, and we're literally building the world. So typically, if you submit something, that is the only thing until someone submits another one. Legion is the CEO of what he is declaring the only gateway into technology. Cortec, if you read the description on his profile and his ability, Cortec is literally the core of tech, of technology. Maybe is that why it's called Cortec? Or is that just a coincidence? And because he declared that, it now is, just like how Jeremiah owns a majority of of Atlas's economy. I mean, of Haven's economy. That's why he's so prominent, because of declarations like that. Sasha Petrov is a renowned bodyguard, and to my knowledge, since no one has ever declared that, and it has yet to be disproven, Sasha is the best bodyguard, and he definitely proved that when he took out Nakama in this past episode. So Legion and Cortec, oh man, what an ally. Legion is dangerous. Legion is scary. He's a night skin, so intelligent that he was able to break away from the hive mind of an entire race, and just at will, like he can jump in and out at will and build his own hive mind of night skin. Let that marinate. So Legion informs Jeremiah what's going on in the colony, and Jeremiah has ulterior motives into what he is calling the Unity Atlas plan. Jeremiah's submission had nothing to do with the bridge, but let me tell you why it turned into that. The reason this Nebi Haven colony arc is relevant to Jo, according to Jo, is because Jeremiah has a history with Nebu and knows the power that this organic matter in Nebu has. He witnessed Epine's death, and he knows Nebu is resource plentiful. What is your character's end goal? Jeremiah wants to use the plentiful resources from Nebu. He saw Epine die and what it did to the planet, so he knows that it is very, very natural, and there are a lot of resources in Nebu because of that. And he wants to capitalize on that, all while making usable energy for Haven. Okay? He wants to utilize Atlas and the influx of migrants to launch recolonization of Nebu. And he's allying with Lectern, and Lectern is signing job contracts for migrants and anyone who wants to help colonize in Nebu. I, the director, want to bring it back to the city as much as I can. So the bridge is like an attempt at me trying to bring it all together. But no, also, I mean, that definitely, it makes sense too, because I thought it would have been cool if during recolonization he had this thing where he was, since he already pretty much owns Haven City, why not build up Nebi and combine it with Haven City. Build this bridge that you can control. I mean, think of if this bridge was a spot in Monopoly and somebody lands on it, you're paying a lot of money. Because he already controls probably a majority of the trade in Haven City. So a bridge and getting them to build it would make everything smooth, and it kind of also supports this good guy look that he's going for. Because at the end of the day, it is a really good idea. It can really help Haven City to get resources from Niboo. These endless resources. This energy. I mean, when you have Lectern on your team drawing up contracts for the jobs, it's a given. Jeremiah is building a bridge to unite people, right? It's all about unity. So Jeremiah, he has the right people on his side as far as what he's trying to achieve, and he has the scheme keyword. The keyword for his character is scheme, and he's leaning on that heavily here with this scheme. He rolls out this propaganda that turns everybody gets everybody pro Atlas, and to bolster this, he even gets the Nagamatos to kill themselves on TV in support of the whole idea of Unity Atlas, and make it look like it's something that they're doing to redeem themselves, because he had obviously had them hostage since the end of season 2, and he likely shook their hands, and now they're under his control. So it was Jeremiah that was able to get them to kill themselves. Now, originally, Jeremiah wanted to kill them on public TV himself and say the words, the dialogue line that he wanted to say when he did it was, when executing them, he was going to say, "You tried to bring down Atlas, but you only made us stronger." And then he's just going to straight execute them. And I know what he was going for, but I thought he would appreciate it even more if they did it themselves through him, because I don't think Jeremiah wants people to look at him as just a murderer, even if these are bad people. I mean, hey, Jeremiah, if you want to be looked at as a murderer, let me know. That's quite a jump. I mean, maybe you're turning things up these days. Let me know. I was just, when I was reading it, I was like, maybe would appreciate this more. But that's why that happened, and we got the Nagamatos to say those things instead. Just seemed like it would have been more impactful. Like, man, they're killing themselves over this shit. This Unity Atlas shit must be righteous. So then Jeremiah, he sends a message, and by message, it's Klaus Huron. Okay. He doesn't want the colonists to go up north, where apparently there's some kind of operations going on. Maybe that's where Atlas is getting the resources from, and they're encroaching upon that. So something has to happen. But we get to that later. We then cut back to the colony, because I want to really show this colony how everybody's getting along before they are visited. So we see Razul feeding the colony, and this is just simply based off of his submission. He wanted to let's take a look at Razul's submission. Why is this arc relevant to you, Razul? He said he wants to find ingredients to use in new recipes. What is your character's end goal? Finding ingredients. Making allies by giving samples of enhancement cooking to those I come across, and promoting LP, which is Labyrinth of Pan. Yeah. What actions will your character attempt to achieve their goal? Giving samples of enhancement cooking to those I come across. The food only lasts for one phase after this one. So he's already thinking that, these are things are going to bolster the people who taste them. It's just something that you have to experience for yourself. But what are your character's feelings? Confident and cunning, very cocky. What dialogue will you like your character to speak? Experience perfection. You're beginning to feel it, I can tell. It begins in your stomach and the power builds till you feel it envelop in your whole body. This is true enhancement cooking. So, when I saw his submission, I knew that I wanted to carve a portion out of the story where we're seeing colony life and all of them getting along. The night after, they all got together. And this would be a good place to put Razul in there. People just don't realize, or maybe they do, but they can't, that because they would all be surrounding him. But they have the world's one of like the greatest chefs in their colony serving them food. Man, it was popping. I wish you were there. And he comes across Aika, and he feeds Aika these things. And Aika's she's all about her celebrity, right? This is a famous chef. All the celebrities have tasted this chef's food before. So she's like, I have to do this. And ironically, she's an android. And you usually associate food with something that you can really like a real human thing. You know what I mean? We taste it, or a living being, something that they enjoy. It's a sense of taste. It was perfect that she was able to be in the same scene with Razul, her being this artificial creature and him being this demon chef that gives her something that brings her alive. So it really made her feel alive, and that's why I felt like she had a beating heart, and it gave her courage, and it was really the solution that she needed, because she was beating herself up under the pressure of doing what she was trying to do. And a lot of that stuff that I put in there around her was pulled from her profile. The part when she really secretly loved sweets but intentionally avoided them because of what happens when she's trying to figure out how her body breaks it down. The fact that she has a situation like that goes on with food, and then you have Razul, who's a chef. Perfect. Then when she can't, there's times where, and this is based off of her profile again, where she doesn't really believe in herself, where she second guesses her, where she's about to say and says things like, I believe, or I'm not programmed for XYZ. I was able to kind of get that in there when she was trying to come up with reasons as to why she can't taste his food. And it wasn't convincing enough. And Razul, being as cocky as he is, he wasn't going to take, he just felt like she was just downplaying his shit, but she didn't even know what she was in for, because his food isn't normal food. And that's kind of what led to her being so confident when Jace Beleren came. It kind of tied into that. She had heart, you know what I mean? She was feeling alive. She was feeling confident in herself because of that food. And not saying she would have never gotten confident, but the food is definitely boosting her shit right now. But overall, her being as complex as she is, it really, she's really playing the companion android role. Because that's what their race is about. Their race is about being androids, but they're created to be real as possible, to be companions for people. But some of them have these, they think more about, why are they here? It can't be just to serve, to pleasure, or to live with and be with someone because they built me for that or want me for that. And here she is, she's built as a replacement of a scientist, and she just deals with that. And that whole character concept and that whole background is very, very appropriate for that race. The food that is given to her, the marvelous Maganax bourguignon stewed in heart red wine, along with a side of nebby baby carrots, skull shrooms, and a giant pearl onions. That was Because I am in the Discord. I jump in the Discord and I was looking through Peoplz role playing, and Razul was in there one night and said that that's what he was serving. He was serving, it was a real version of that. It was beef bourguignon, stewed in something, and baby carrots and mushrooms and something onions. And I just went in there and I grabbed that and just threw in some shit that actually exists. That actually exists in the setting. And the only animal that we have that exists in the setting, well, there might be more that I probably just didn't add, because I suck at that apparently. There's a lot of shit that I realized now that's not in there. The Maganax. The Maganax is a giant beast that I think Makai submitted a long time ago. And then we have Porklum, which is what we always go to, but because this is Razul's cooking, Porklum that's low level food, man. Like, we had to get that Maganax bourguignon. Also, because the original one said beef bourguignon, so Porklum is like a pig or something, right? So Maganax is probably closer to beef than a Porklum is. So marvelous Maganax bourguignon. I had to go look up that word to make sure I was pronouncing it right. I probably still am not pronouncing it right. But yeah, I actually had a scene in there that I had taken out where everybody was around the campfire and John Sage Quill was going to be like giving some motivating speeches, and Legion was gonna say something that was really just out of pocket, intentionally to rustle some feathers. Because, you know, the next day, you know, Jace and Henri Gosling was coming. But I erased it because that's when I think the direction I was going in more so would have warranted some action from Kuth. I don't think Kuth would have listened to something like that. And I wasn't going to have them fighting off of something that Legion says, because Legion's whole submission was about not being sneaky and stuff. So I don't know. I was trying to find a way for Legion to say some cool, ominous, creepy shit, but I voted against that and took it out. Instead, that scene just turned into him toasting with Myra. Then we saw a man running through the jungle from migrant assailants. That was so we could show the brothel that Selena was putting in there, which is a little secret problem that you got to be careful with. Can't forget about that. We don't know what Selena's there for, but it can't be good, right? If anybody knows Selena and you have some allies over there in Nibu, you need to warn your allies about Selena, the Enchantress. So the next day, Louis wakes up. It's the morning, and he sees people are down there in the colony, and he is approached by Klaus Huron, who specifically stated in his submission that he would be going after anybody who is trying to capitalize over here in Nibu. Why is the story relevant to you, Klaus? He said Atlas, including Mewis und Steiner Corporation, wants him to help with the colonization. What is your end goal? To do his job and get paid. What actions will your character attempt to achieve their goal? He has been tasked with tracking down and eliminating other businessmen trying to recolonize in Nibu. So that automatically put Louis Left Eye in his crosshairs, because he is a businessman trying to recolonize in Nibu. And because Klaus is an assassin, he's going to get to him. And it's going to be in the morning when he's waking up. Scene detail. Number 1. I have intel on this individual and have come prepared with the right equipment to deal with him, which is justified by his occupation. There is nothing of value here. I don't have to worry about collateral damage, which is very, very cold. Holy shit. How hostile are you? I will show no mercy to my opponents. What are your character's feelings? He doesn't think much about all this, just following orders. That's why there was no talk. And that's why he wasn't looking to listen to Louis when he was trying to be diplomatic, which was in Louis' submission. He was very straight to the point. Anything I should be aware of? Advantage due to mercenary punk type. True that. So what we see is Klaus comes and he takes out Louis Lefty, and the beam emitter goes through everything. So originally I was going to have it so that Loki, his ferret, will put up some telekinetic power or force field that would protect Louis and maybe just knock him out. But that beam goes through everything, and I want to stick with that as best as I can, especially if no one's being killed. You know, as an assassin, you would think, why wouldn't he go for the head? Well, that would probably be something for a maim. And maybe if it did go through the head, we would just have to get Louis Lefty to find a means to not die in the next episode. But I felt that would have been a bit too extreme. And Louis will still have to find a means to take care of his wound in the next episode, if he doesn't want to walk around with any disadvantages. But that's just going to drive more story. I rolled Louis against Klaus Huron only after I've decided on who has the advantage and disadvantage. Klaus. So just to kind of go back into how I judge these, both players are pretty much on an equal playing field by default. And then I judge based off of the circumstances, the situation, the scenario, each character, what they can do. And I judge who would have an advantage in what. Very similar to how you would see people get judged in that show Deadliest Warrior, when they would try to figure out who would win between a samurai and a pirate. And you put them on a even scale, and then you start to weigh the pros and cons of their circumstances. I use my judgment for that to decide what the odds are going to be for either party before I roll a 100-sided die. The person with the highest advantage, or with the most advantages, will obviously have the larger quartile. And I'm only doing this when there is a conflict and people are in each other's way, or are needing to achieve something that the other may not want to achieve. Lefty had some advantages because he was sort of at home base, right? He's in the hold. There could be all kind of hidden compartments and traps that he could have in there. So I gave him a bonus just simply off of the possibilities of being within his ship could have. And then I also gave him an edge by being polite and diplomatic, because he would also try to talk himself out of this, and that's based off of his submission. So I gave him something for that. But Klaus, he had gathered intel on this person. He has cyber vision, so he can look around for any traps or anything that he needs to know about. He has the drop on him. He's an assassin. He has the equipment, the weapons ready to go. And the player in himself behind Klaus, his intentions were so straightforward and direct, and to the point that it really left no opening for any kind of parlay. He was very straight to the point, and once he knew that this person was doing what, matched the criteria of somebody who needed to be attacked, it was curtains from there. So the part when Klaus shoots at Louis and blasts him out of the hold and then looks for Loki, the reason I added that in there is to show that Loki was nowhere to be found. And Loki invokes these telekinetic powers inside of Lefty when they're near each other. So in order for Lefty to even be able to use his telekinetic powers, because they're linked with his pet ferret Loki, he has to be near. So I put that in there to just show that Louis Lefty is likely going to survive, probably because of something that his ferret Loki did. I was going to have a scene where Nomad was going to leap through and save him, but I wanted it to leave that mystery in there. Like, how could Lefty survive? And maybe Lefty can come up with, how he's going to bounce back from that. We don't really know. But remember, you're not dead until you get maimed 3 times. So there's still Act 2 and 3. If you go into Act 2 without taking care of your wounds, or if you go into Act 2 and get bodied again, you'll definitely want to sit out at Act 3 or run the possibility of being maimed. The reason you would want to be in Act 2 and Act 3 is to get closer to achieving your goals. Your personal goals are to establish trade, and colonize. And the whole point of Atlas coming to meet you all was to show you that they are going to try to stand in your way. And currently they put everybody's goals to a halt so far, and are threatening you to stop with your goals and let them to continue to complete their goals, which is a problem, right? That's a major conflict. So you have 2 more acts to start getting things moving in your direction. Right now, I would say that it's probably both of you made a lot of progress. So you would want to, I would consider Act 1 a tie, to be honest with you. But Atlas definitely is ahead right now, or starting to get ahead. So Act 2 and Act 3 is going to be very important. Meanwhile, back on the colony, Jace Beleren and Henri Gosling, who is one of his legacy perks, just a person that from his past, back when they used to do work for Atlas as mercenaries, and he tags along with Jace Beleren, always has. They arrive to pretty much massage the minds of people into getting on the hype train with Atlas to build and colonize. And they come and they pretty much, using mental manipulation, get people to believe that this is a good thing and that they're going to work for Atlas. And whether that sticks with the players or not, it was definitely enough to kind of put you in a haze. And I'm going to hold that over you all because that's what his powers do. And if that's going to create conflict, which means there's going to be roles in Act 2. So if you're able to overcome this, you'll definitely see it come out in the story. But again, you would have to get creative in how you're going to deal with the situation like this. At the end of the day, it's the dice, and based on what you come up with is what can change the odds of the quartiles in the percentile dice. But if you're just outmanned, if you just are overpowered by your opponents, try to make the best of it. There's a lot of allies out there that you can team up with. If somebody gets you in a situation that you can't get out of, just try to go along with it and make a great story. But I don't see any reason why. I don't see any stalemates happening here. Everybody is pretty darn capable, and I left Shaman Onric out of that scene purposefully because I couldn't see him being down there that morning. He was up in his hut at night. The morning was when everybody was, waking up from their festivities from the night prior. And they just came. And I wouldn't be surprised if Shaman Ulrich was watching from afar. But that is a person that was not affected by the mental manipulation. Same with the androids who have no brains. But who are they to really know what was actually happening? Who are they to know that people's minds were being manipulated? They're probably confused. like, well, hold up, what is this? Like, are we cool with this Atlas thing? And that's where the leadership comes in. John, Sage, Quill, Ica, and Onric. If they're not telling anybody to fight and kill, the androids who have not been affected by the mental manipulation are not going to be hostile unless they're just badass like that. But I didn't see any characters like that in the story so far. The part when Ica goes up to Jace, and she's overconfident and inexperienced, a little naive. He sees that she's trying to manipulate him, and he's like, man, get the fuck out of here. And Honoré smacks her head off. That was just to show John's fractal reality ability. Wanted to show what that can do, and that saves. And him being he was gonna let her do her thing. He respected it. Then he saw how it ended up, and so he stepped in and took it from there. Kind of reminds me of Doctor Strange when the only way was to give the stone to Thanos, and then whatever shenanigans came after that. But he could see parts of the future. So after the message is delivered, Jace is told by Jeremiah that, hey, we got the point across. We let them know that Atlas is here and we're going to be doing our thing and we're going to be building soon. So sign these contracts, get to work if you're down. Then we go to Jace, and we see Jace receives a package delivered by a shady group of people, and it's Dravko Maz. And this is not the first time these two met, but Drav doesn't recognize Jeremiah, because Jeremiah was in disguise as another kingpin back in the time when they met, named Jace Balaran. And Drav he smells Jeremiah, but he doesn't recognize Jeremiah. But anyway, he delivers a package, and we don't know what's in the package, but whatever it is, Jeremiah is happy, so much so that he lets Drav have some real estate, some smuggling routes, and some bread for his protection, quote unquote. But I really like this scene because now that Jeremiah Oliver has Deathtude in the Futures in his ranks by way of his command ability, we get to see Deathtude just fall from grace and having to take this shit. Drav is disrespecting him. But this goes to show you how powerful and how scary the command is, which is Jace's ability, the power that he has over him, and his ability to understand how powers work. He doesn't even let Dravko Maz fool him into overreacting. Dravko Maz, and I'm sure other players who submitted something but did not get in the episode can relate with this. But Dravko Maz had some in his submission mentioned how he was going to be sneaking through the forest to get here to deliver the package, and the things that he was going to be doing on some Rambo shit in the jungle. But I didn't put that in the episode because I felt that I really wanted the surprise of Dravko Maz appearing to meet Jeremiah again. I wanted to save that, and I wanted to. I felt like there's the group was described as being a very skillful group that can get from point A to point B without any issues. And I wanted it to be clean, so that's why we just had this group show up in the end to deliver the package to Jeremiah. But that pretty much wraps up the entirety of Act 1. I really like where everything fell in place. I really liked what the characters are doing. In regards to characters that were not able to get into the episode, any character can get in. You'll have another chance to get in Act 2 and 3. Just remember to stay under the 25 word limit, and that you might not get into the episode even if you stay under the 25 word limit. Just please keep that in mind. And don't hate me. But all right, hey, thanks for kicking it. 3 hours, holy crap. The episode, that first act was pretty long, and I don't foresee all of them being that long. You gotta kind of factor in the fact that the stories are being rolled out, the premise, the intros of the characters. Act 2 is going to get straight to it, I would assume. You know what I mean? So I hope you liked this. I'm going to polish it and refine it over time, of course. It's a lot of information. I'm going to find a way to condense it down, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was a bit more cleaner and concise and consolidated next time. If there's anything that you would like to see included in these meta glimpses, let me know. You know what I mean? I really thank you for your patronage if you do choose to support, and I would like to know if there's anything you would like for me to include into here. But for the most part, I would like to keep it lightweight. This certainly didn't feel lightweight because it was so much to go into. So if you have any advice, definitely let me know. But again, if you're supporting, you get this meta pass, and you get to see behind the scenes of what's going on in P&D. And we definitely appreciate everybody's support. Like, subscribe, and looking forward to seeing what happens in Act 2 and 3. Peace out.